Okay, so welcome to this week's podcast for an update on our progress. It's myself, Durvar, which I guess is having technical difficulty issues right now, and then Hawkins will just be kind of sitting in, just kind of throwing in his 2 cents here and there. So, as many of you know, we transitioned out of phase 2, going into phase 3 for the rebuild. And one of the biggest things for the rebuild was just civilian evacuation and just kind of getting that cemented. So we're going to be going over that. We're going to be going over the DNA drop system, the scientist changes, the DNA collector, a bunch of bugs, some new maps. There's already a new map right now. What's out? So we're going to be going over that. I'm cooking another build for the game on experimental right now. So that's going to be adding in a whole series of fixes to the base
And
game for experimental. What do you say, Hawkins?
so the event does have a technical
I figured.
difficulty.
Yeah, we'll have to just. Oh yeah, Discord wants him to confirm his age to speak on Discord, so he got age gated. So, ain't that fucking Discord, man? Okay, anyway, so you figure we're gonna go right
Should-
into it. We're gonna basically pull up the live showcase, and I'm gonna go just kind of start at the top. So let me save this map. I was actually working on Iron Wake at the time. This is the map that basically is from Legacy, which was the Presidio, a little fictional island we came up with, little resort town, whatever. Oh, hold on. Let me turn off navigation because that's going to lag it out. And then turn off that. And there we go. So basically, this is the island that we basically just shipped. And this effort's still working on like filling in the back area here and there. But this is just one of the areas that he's working on. I'm on a remote desktop machine, which is why it's kind of laggy. This is not my computer. It's another computer. So actually, let me go ahead and let me see if I can expedite this. Hold on. So we're going to do this. And let me move that over here. Okay, that'll make this faster. So you figure this is from an older version, and right now he's kind of going through and just kind of sprucing up and reorganizing some of the areas here, and essentially just filling it in, adding in more areas to play, tweaking it as necessary, optimizing them, repainting some of the terrain, landscape, and whatnot, and just getting everything situated from a standpoint to where you can just kind of jump in and play. We played some sessions earlier in the week to just kind of see how it was feeling. So this is playable in like an early version, but there were some issues that Kat and some of the other people ran into that were like playtesting it for us on Discord. So it's just a matter of like I'm gonna cook another patch so you guys can try the new version. But there were just some issues of like how this was placed and these were placed. Like Efren's reworking the stadium, and he's just kind of cleaning up and adding more set dressing and adding more like little deco items here and there. So you figure like he's getting through that and essentially just kind of trying to make this area more lively. I would say that Iron Wake's goal is to be done in the next couple of days, going into like Tuesday, Wednesday. And then at that point, that's where we're going to be shifting to get you guys another map, which is going to be Angel Island as a standalone. Which here, let me see if I can load that up. So Angel Island, for the ones that don't know, well, I'm just kind of waiting. I'm stalling for my SVN to catch up real fast. Someone committed a bunch of work last minute. While this loads, I'm going to show you guys really quickly the other map that we're working on. It come in sometime next week, because the biggest thing for us is we want to interject some variety. So then that way, for the new people that are here, you guys can play like the 4 or 5 maps that we have for Pandemic, and then we can lock in and go focus on San Francisco North. Get that playable within a month. Add a beta often, so you can start on the mainland, and then if you don't care about some areas not being textured, then you can play in that in an early form, kind of like what Subnautica did, where like some of the areas that were further away from 000 weren't textured in their early versions of early access, and then they ended up texturing it like as they got along. So that way we can at least get you guys to just go in there and play it, and those that like to live dangerously can. And it just kind of gives some options there. Hold on one sec. It's loading up real fast. Let me turn off the navigation so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And then let me turn off. Oh, wait. my dummy self loaded the wrong map. I'm so sorry. Hold on. So we're gonna load Open World Master. Skip. Give that a second to load. Hopefully Durvar figures out his voice thing. Like I was saying earlier, Durvar is supposed to be hosting, but Discord age checked him. So he has to submit his ID. Open World Master. Whichever one loads first, because technically I want to show it on my main computer so I can cut out the latency on this monitor. Let me let that load up real fast, and then I'll show y'all. And then we're going to just do a quick check-in, and then we're going to end with civilian evacuation like we always do. So that way that'll segue into the Q&A. And you guys can ask questions. We do the whole spiel there. And then from there, we'll wrap it up and just kind of go from there. So give me 1 second. It is loading. Of course, it takes forever to load, but I need it not to. So Hawkins, why don't you fill the time? Why don't you talk about some of the stuff you've been doing with some of the Ajax stuff and the vehicle balance?
I mean, the only things that I did lately has been I did fix a bug from the spine being able to two-shot operators. It was due to a different bullet type. Then I added the correct bullet type. That means you also have to take damage back. Like, you get hit by it and then you have a 15-second tick damage. And yeah, the vehicles were missing in it. I also added them into the table so that the vehicles should take more or less hits from the spine.
Yeah, so even basically rebalancing it to just improve the time to kill for like the operators and
Yes.
the vehicles, because some of the vehicles still had like some stock numbers, and he was going in there and tweaking them and looking at them, being like, oh, let's change the Cerberus his time to kill, let's change the Abrams, let's change the Ajax, so so on and so forth. So he's going through and basically looking at all the time to kills across all weapons in the game for the CERC vehicles, and then balancing them accordingly of what feels right. Because you don't want them to be broken. You want them to still be kind of like, some challenge. So that's been his purview. It's been kind of crazy for him. Because like you figure like, did you want to share your good news or be shy?
I mean, I have become a father since Monday, so
yeah, so shit
also
happened.
been dealing with my son.
Yeah, so congratulations to him. So it took Cepheus took a little bit of a back trek for him this week, but you figure it's great news for him. So he's been doing that and just, having fun of being a dad. So what we have here is Angel Island. And essentially, this is one of the other maps that we're going to be basically bringing in sometime next week in an early incubator form on experimental. Effort does want to make some changes to make it slightly wider and thicker, so it expands out a little bit more here. And that's one of the things that him and I are going to kind of be talking over and going into like Iron Wake being finished up. And then we get this map out. You guys have another like small little scenario to play. And then we just kind of go from there. Did you get through your age gate?
Yeah, I got through the age gate. I think if they think they're getting my ID, they're getting.
Don't say it on stream. We'll talk about it off.
I sent my face.
Oh, you had to send your 3D scan?
Yeah, I sent my 3D scan instead of my ID.
That's fun. Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you take over then. I was talking about Angel Island and just kind of showing this. They can always go in and look at it at their own leisure. Where did you want to segue at this point from the list?
Angel Island. So, wait, Angel Island was Iron Wake, right?
Yeah. No, Iron Wake is the Presidio. Angel Island's, yeah. Do you want to jump to Infected Birds?
Yeah, let's do Infected Birds plus Visual Polish.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm kind of readjusting. How is all of that going at the moment?
So one of the things that we got in last week was the Infected Birds, and just basically we were kind of tweaking them and balancing them more so from Hawkins' inside of just adjusting the how hard they are to kill based off of different enemy types. And then we turned off the debug stuff. We've been basically speeding them up and making sure they can actually reach different targets in the game, because like you figure the helicopters in the game are incredibly fast. So we've been kind of like changing that and tuning that up and making sure they're robust and fast enough to get around. The debug sphere is only showing up here just because it's like in the editor for debugging. But you can see essentially like that's like the damage they're doing for the operator. We're probably gonna have to tweak that a little bit, but you can also see like the DNA that they dropped basically. So that's the other thing, is different enemy types in the game drop DNA on the ground based off of like essentially how much DNA it decides to roll to drop. And then if you have a scientist, you can grab that. So I guess I'm indirectly showing that as well at the same time because it just happened to spawn DNA. And then
I
the
mean,
other,
we can combine the two systems if you want, because it is going to show DNA with the birds.
yeah, I'm kind of screwed regardless because I'm gonna put a sparrow in so I can just show. And like you figure, they can haul ass, so they can chase after you, and basically just kind of like try and catch you. Oh, there's a lot of debug shit in here, so that's gonna screw me over. I think we're gonna have to tweak a little bit of their pathfinding here and there because it's not nearly as adaptive as I'd like. Like they're still kind of leading behind. And then you can see they're just kind of trying to ticking the helicopter, and then when they kill it, it will essentially just kind of fall. There it goes. And then they're probably gonna run over and kill the generator. Oh, well, that's a bug. Looks like they're malfunctioning trying to attack the barracks? Or what is that? Yeah, they're malfunctioning and trying to attack the barracks. Oh, you know what? It could have been the civilian hold. Yeah, we're going to have to tweak that. There's still some testing left for the birds because they're a very dynamic AI. We need to tune up some of the visuals because like they look kind of erratic. When they have to move that fast, they're jostulating or oscillating at the speed at which they move. They need a local speed, and then they need like a movement speed. So that's something that we're going to be working with Dimitri to iron out over the next week to just kind of improve the visuals a little bit. And then you can see like the damages are still kind of all over the place. So that's something that like Leon and Michael are going to have to look into. Because I mean, he's been attacking this for a while. But as I mentioned earlier, we're a little bit backlogged with all the craziness going on. So we'll be working through the balance and trying to increase these so that, you know, this actually goes boom a lot more reasonably faster. But yeah, that's it for the birds. Yeah.
I do find the conglomerate of birds just hilarious because it's all it is just a moving, flying, massive wings.
Well, yeah, but you figure like there's still some room for improvement here and there because we do want to make it to where they kind of spread out more and like slow down their local animation rate because there's only one speed right now, and they just need more sub-stepping, more like pacing. One thing that we've talked about is having different speeds based off of the adversary they're chasing after, so they can ramp up or ramp down. So they're more reasonable at times. I don't know. We're going to be looking at that from a balance standpoint and figuring out what makes sense, because these things are supposed to be like, really, really good against massed infantry, and they're supposed to be really good against helicopters, but terrible against armor. So I mean, you figure they're doing terrible against your Abrams and your Strikers and your maybe not as much as the Ajax. That's a light vehicle, but they're more of a mid-game enemy that shows up after day 4, and they increase in probability basically as the days go on. So we'll start seeing them more and more. Just like the other rebalance stuff that we've been doing in the last week or so. Did you want me to segue into the world building since we already have those here?
Let's segue into the world building since that's already there.
Okay, so we already have it here, so we're gonna do some civilian evacuation stuff. Let me get rid of these birds so they don't screw up my test. And then I'm gonna spawn in, and then we're gonna hit F11, and we're gonna basically show the world building. So the world building's got a visual upgrade based off of Legacy, where we had that like weird separate pop-up. We ended up just keying that into the actual base details panel that you get when you click on units like this, where like it just fills that in. It's just a different size of that details panel. And then at that point, we added purge and condemn. Condemn allows you to move people from one building to another. So if there is space in another structure in that zone, they'll occupy that space. Purge allows you to basically kill everyone in the zone, but it ticks reputation in that zone. Going into next week, we're going to be showing the reputation on the zone card. The zone card's getting an overhaul right now. which we're going to go into later. But essentially, you're going to have a lot more data on this. It's going to be clickable again, like in Legacy. So at a moment's glance, you can click on it, get information about that zone. And then at the same time, you'll be able to see your reputation in that zone to just the civilians as a whole and just other civilians. Because the idea is that if I click on this structure and I basically like purge, little skull icons going to appear, and then people are going to start dying. Now, one thing that we did do this time around with the rebuild is we made it to where the system supports audio localized to the structure. So I'm working with Winters, the guy on the Steam Workshop mod that does all those announcer VOs. Also, the guy that kind of helps us on the UI for the operator and RTS stuff is working with him to basically get some VO lines recorded to basically have like announcers speak or just general like messages of the day when you're purging, condemning, or evacuating. Because the other thing technically is the third icon that can show up sometimes is a little like running guy icon, and that's when that building is signaled for evacuation. Like those people are basically actively leaving it and going to another zone, excuse me, or they're going to an evacuation point if the evacuation point is in said zone that you're in. So you can see in this instance, everyone in that building's dead. And then, obviously, as the other systems come online, purging that amount of people would have ticked your reputation in this zone and would have ticked the reputation in other adjacent zones off of a taper effect, where the closer to the epicenter, the more of a reputational hit you get. And then for every zone that it can walk, that it can physically connect, then it's going to basically lower their reputation in those zones to a lesser degree. Because then people are like, oh, they didn't kill all those people. That's fake. I don't believe you. But like the closer you are, the greater chance of basically people being like, oh, I believe that. I was there. I saw it. So the idea is in that way you can kind of get some level of simulation of like people talking about CERC and basically having like a trickle effect where like your actions have consequences, because the idea would be is this will trickle into dynamic civilian groups in quarter 2, but it'll also factor into some of one of the last line items we're going to be doing for civilian evacuation, where you'll get random civilians that will show up if your reputation gets too low, and they'll just shoot the place up. They'll just show up at your evacuation base or whatever, or one of your outposts with guns already, and just start shooting at you. So, and that will kind of be the basis that we use going into dynamic civilian groups to start nudging the gun gunplay. Sorry, the gun to gun gunplay and like the balance of the time to kills, so they can get a nice, good, like fun loop. So like in this instance, you can see everyone in this building's now dead. But if I click on this structure and hit condemn, you're gonna notice that people are gonna start transferring out of this building, and they're gonna start filling this building. So you can kind of start to see if like, oh well, if I want to deny Chelsea resources in this zone, I'm just going to kill everyone, because the idea is that you could just go in and start just condemning structures, and then obviously they go in and just start shooting everyone, or you basically go along the lines of trying to push them back further down the line, which I'll show in a second for that working mechanic where it transfers populations between zones. So you figure in this instance, it's slowly but surely filling this zone. And this one's empty. And then if I go over here to this civilian hold, you can see the same thing here, where it kind of gives you like a quick like moment glance of just generally like what's going on in the zone. Now this structure, this asset is not done yet. This, as you guys can see in our build daily update blog, this UI and this structure functionality came in on the 11th hour, like literally. So we're still working on this asset and getting it back up to legacy, but improving a lot of systems of just generally the sliding and everything else. We're gonna have to probably tweak this a little. You gonna say?
I will say, giving me a purge option probably isn't a good idea.
Yeah, I know that's granted. God help us all.
I will purge everyone.
Oh Lord. Let me go to an actual bigger
I would
map.
disagree. I would try to rescue everybody. I need that money.
Oh yeah, because you get so much money off of actually saving them, so it's more like beneficial to try and save them.
But I am saving them from life.
Lord Jesus Christ!
You're
Their
saving them
free
from becoming
subscription to life
infected.
has expired.
I'll pray for your soul.
Hey, you've got to be careful of asymptomatic carriers.
So you can see in this example, if I click here, then I can move everyone in zone C to zone B or A. So let's say, for instance, like type of hypothetical situation, you might lose a zone, or you don't want to risk it, or you're setting up recording, where you're like, okay, great, everyone's in C, but this is the front line, or it's going to be the front line soon. So I'm gonna move everyone from C to B or A or D or whatever based off of your backlines. The biggest thing is they're not gonna move unless there's space. That's where the flow comes in. Where you're like either you're going like a A to B or A to C, or you're doing like directly A to D, B to D, C to D. It's whatever you want to do. But the idea is there has to be free space in D. And that's where you're gonna get those buses. And you're gonna get basically the people that are showing up, because if they can't go to your civilian hold, they'll go to structures in that zone. And then they'll wait at those structures until they're called upon to show up at your civilian hold, because there's still going to be a limit on how many people will just meander outside here. Like about 100 to 150 people would probably be the limit, give or take any given time. But other thousands of people will like flock into these buildings and just chill. Now, obviously, let's say this is another reason why condemn exists, is condemn also personally marks it as off limits. So people can't occupy a building over your base. So it's like, oh, you're doing your thing, and then civilians basically decide to like live in the building, like on the same street as you, overlooking your base. They can be like, yeah, no, fuck you, permanently condemned. And then you figure no one's allowed to enter that structure, essentially. So then it gives you some tools of like clearing the city and saying like, oh, these areas are off limits kind of deal. So that's the other layer of condemning, where you can kind of like mitigate your exposure, especially if there are people in these buildings that are infected. Because right now we're doing like the top down like simulation aspects of it, where it's like, okay, like these are all the systems running. And then like once we get the base, the base flow going for this structure, going into like the 5 divisions, then you're going to start seeing random people that you could see in the fog of war running around. Because we still did that in Legacy, where like when you had an evacuation order, like you would see random people spawning and like running to like that building. We're still going to do that within the confines of what's reasonable for the maintained balance and network stability. So that's why, like, when I go to this structure, you can see those little alert points, which we're gonna have to add more. But those are like, they start there, and then they lerp out here. But some of these points are gonna have to be updated, because some of these buildings' pivots have been adjusted and tweaked over the course of the rebuild. We've kind of retooled and cleaned up some of the assets, so that's gonna trigger a QC run, or basically like an audit. Because like you figure this, in this case, this socket should be here. And then this socket should be right about here to get them, so they have enough berth to get out. So that way they spawn here and they leave here, and then it releases them to the Pathfinder. So that way they can make their way to your evacuation hold, or they can make their way to another building, depending on your edicts in that zone. So like you can see that we're slowly but surely kind of edging our way for like massive mobilization of like all the systems at play. And this week was a lot of like the foundational pieces. So like if I click on evacuation order and I choose like, let's say B, then the idea would be is every people in C are randomly going to start leaving, and they're going to start going to B. But because there's no space in B, there's nowhere for them to go. But if I go here and I purge, and I purge, and I purge, purge, I'll have to turn that off, because then people are going to be showing up and then dying. So let me not do that. So give that a second. There it goes. People are dying. And then you figure, oh, you know what? I see a bug. Is that it's not properly saving. Let's see. Yeah, there it goes. It didn't save the last evacuation order. Okay. Yeah, because it's purging them, but I sent some people over, so basically it's kind of doing it slowly but surely. Let me click over here. You can see your CERC reputation. Oh, it looks like Derek did set that up. Okay, so that is set up. Okay. He stuck that in when I was sleeping. So hold on, let me check something. Are they still purging over here? Let me go slow-mo 10 for the sake of time. Because like you figure the purge is kind of slow. And it purges one building at a time. We're going to have to balance the speed. So keep in mind things are going to seem kind of slow or really fast at times over the next week. Because like, we're programming in the base systems and then we're going to have to play it. So once all the base elements are in, then we're going to go in and just kind of balance. Oh, shit. Hold on. Put everyone in God mode. That'd be awkward if I turn around and then the civilian holds dead. I'd be like, damn it. And then you can also see the new system right here.
Awkward.
But you can see like the infected, the dead, the civilians, the evacuated. But you can see right now because I'm purging, the overall amount of civilians on the map are going down. And the amount dead are going up. And then the infected are going down based off of you killing them. So now the infected are feeding off of that number for their population. Or rather, we added a currency on the back end because you figure I was actually, what was I was playing a game with the public playtesting channel. I think it was like 5 a.m. a couple of days ago. And we were basically just kind of playtesting the early version of the UI and everything. And I was just writing down bugs. And one of the things that we set up was we set it up so that the infected have a biomass resource. And that biomass resource is people. So as they kill people, those are turned into their infected number, and then that's their cash. So they use that to buy units. So like in what we were doing, I was spawning infected via console commands to just fight players because I was just bored. So we were just having a good time. So I was spawning pods around their bases, and then spawning like infected, and then I was just trolling them. But the reason why I'm giving this as an example is because you figure we're starting to slowly but surely build the infrastructure for making the infected faction playable because we have the biomass in as a currency for them. So that's something that we're still working on in the back end. And we're just, whenever we can, we make changes that are multifaceted so that way they can facilitate CERC, but they can facilitate infected. Because ultimately, the long-term goal is once CERC is all sexy and nice and polished and all the bugs are gone, we need to go figure out how to make the infected playable. And just reconceptualize like some of the systems of like the juggernaut abilities or the blow up a guy abilities, so we can see what we could do about even if it's just as simple as a PvE mode where it's infected, AI take over CERC, and then the players take over the infected and they try and fuck up CERC. But or if we get to PvP where it's like players versus like CERC versus infected, those are things that we're looking at later down the line as we're basically just kind of programming these systems and just setting the foundation in place so we can just kind of try and explore that.
They would be some insane PvP things.
Well, yeah, because then at that point, like people would be going crazy. I mean, it's basically the Zerg on drugs. So,
Oh, yeah.
So like very much so. Let me drop some scientists in so I can show some of the other mechanics in play because this map is a perfect incubator for just being able to show some of the other systems we've been doing. So let me slow-mo 10 so Chelsea can get set up. Okay, she's in zone B. Okay, so now we're going to sneak a scientist over. So one of the biggest complaints that I heard in Legacy was it was like, goddamn, find Waldo when you were like trying to farm DNA. Like not everyone wants to sit there and be like, oh, a piece of candy for like 30 minutes and collect 650 DNA to kill Chelsea because that's coming back. We're adding her pod back in the next 30 days, 30 to 40 days or whatever after civilian evacuation. We're going to be setting up some of the foundation for DNA research for civilian evacuation. And then we're going to take that off, basically keep it running going into April to add in like more like militaristic aspects of like DNA research with like cash and whatnot. But you can see here, let me double check. Am I in the zone? Zone C? No. If I move there, they're gonna let me put these guys in God mode. I'm gonna like sneak over here. Hopefully they don't see me. Hold fire. Nope, go around. Go over here. As long as I don't damn it. Okay, hold on. Let me warp Chelsea. Bye. Have a good time. Okay, so you figure in this zone right now, you can see that we haven't hit the threshold for DNA yet, where it starts to actually populate and show where they are. But we did add this device just to show you guys here, where it's called a DNA collector. This is a small little device that just farms DNA passively based off of the level of infection in that zone. You can kind of like play with this right now on experimental. There's nothing you can do with the DNA currency right now. But the idea is in that way, this is going to lead into civilian evacuation and other mechanics later down the line, where the idea is you can use that DNA and that cash to basically be able to farm DNA. You use the cash, you use the requisition points, and you can basically tech up in terms of being able to, like, get this or get that. So you can see, like, in this case, based off of the amount of pods on the zone, it's going to basically farm more DNA at the DNA collector. And then based off of that, you could take it, you could spend it. Now, one of the other things that we're going to be looking into going into like late April is putting in the Atlas version of this. That's like a DNA like collection truck that you drive into a zone. Oh, hell no. Can you kill him, please? This. Oh my god. Yeah, that's not gonna work out great for them. They're in God mode, but yeah, they found me. Scurvy dogs, and then it looks like he's stuck infinitely in pause. No.
You scurvy dog.
I think
He is still.
Yeah, I think he's stuck.
By the.
Yeah, I'm gonna
No,
fix
he's
it.
stuck.
No,
You only have to kill the builder.
Let me see. Yeah, he's stuck. I'm gonna have to fix that. I killed the little
kill
guy.
the builder.
The builder is dead.
The builder is still. No, look at the. There.
Hold on.
That's why he's stuck.
Dead. I used a console command. So you figure, yeah, we're gonna have to basically work on that because I got that on recording, so I'm gonna look into that going into Monday to fix that because something is off with their timing. There still is some issues with some of the DNA spawning in the air. Something's going on with the collision. There's something else gonna be tweaking there. Because sometimes like there's so many objects in a fixed area that it offsets it. So it's something we're gonna have to tweak. Or rather, I'm gonna have to tweak. The DNA collection does work. It does look like there's a little oddity there where if the DNA is there when it gets dropped, it's not collecting automatically. It's based off of leaving and touching it. That's something else I'm going to be fixing going into Monday. Because again, this system, you guys, technically this system is in your current experimental, but it's disabled. Like they don't drop DNA in your current version because it's not ready yet for mass production. And there's no reason to put it in yet because it's nothing to spend it on. So you can see like as I'm killing them, like essentially, hold on, let me set them to ammo list. So yeah, as you can see, as I'm killing them, they're dropping DNA, and then we put it in the same system as Legacy. So the idea is that the more DNA there is, the larger it gets. So you figure at that point, like you can kind of see, like, oh, that's a lot of DNA, or that's a small amount of DNA, or a medium size. So you can see, like, that's a smaller little pouch, and that's a larger one, and that's like somewhere in the middle, medium. So that way, and they're on the field for about maybe like 300 seconds. So you have a good amount of time to get them. You can also see the new balance system in play, where they're not spawning brutes, spitters. They're not massing me with like a shit ton of crazy units on day 0. Because by now, a couple weeks ago, I think they would have built like 20 blow-up guys, 10 brutes. Like it was, and I was like, yeah. So you can kind of see the new balance in play here too as well. That we have out on experimental for those that are like wanted to kind of pace a little bit better. And then one of the other things we've been doing is kind of tuning up and adjusting their investigation recall rate of like how quickly they're able to respond. One thing I will say is that we are aware of a bug relating to the sometimes if you shoot someone outside of your base, they report the wrong investigation location. That's why sometimes you'll still see them like going outside your base and staring at you. I believe that I fixed the remaining instances of that, where like, they kind of just stop outside your base as of the newest experimental a couple days ago. But I'm just going to keep watching that slowly but surely to see if there's any new instances of that occurring, variations per se, or if the same one's still popping up. Because you can see here's a perfect example where like they're still sending out investigations over here, and they're trying to secure this area. But like this is the other variation where people think it's a bug, but it's not. Is that you can see in this instance, these guys were tasked with securing this zone, and then the moment I left, they were retasked to throw themselves on my base over here. But in some cases, the system is not aggressive enough to grab these guys to where basically like they end up just kind of getting confused. And then the system ends up garbage collecting them and putting them back into rotation to be used on another attack. Because you can see in this example, like these guys are going to the attack, but they're being redirected to me. But so that's just one of the things that we're kind of looking into is this and just kind of improving their hive intelligence. So some of it's going to be snuck in over the next couple weeks. But April, I think, is going to be like the biggest time for us to just kind of like improve their AI and just kind of fix whatever like weird oddities are still occurring in terms of like their decision making. Because I still think there's a lot of room for improvement for the infected AI, which is why like I want to kind of improve that around the time of April. Of like after civilian evacuations like rectified and we get all the base stuff in, April's going to be like operators, infected AI, and just kind of tuning up what's already there. But yeah, there's in a nutshell all the little like pieces of candy that you can now just run over. And you can see I have 420 DNA. So basically I almost have enough to kill Chelsea off of
You got
legacy
funny number.
numbers. Yeah, oh the lord. So you figure, and then like the DNA hand thingy, if I could actually build it peacefully, that would farm DNA as well. It looks like there's a visual bug where the collector isn't visually showing how much DNA it's collecting on its physical imprint. So I'm going to be looking into that because when I built it earlier, it should have said like, oh, you have. Hold on. Let me do something. Teleport. Hold fire. Build. It's gonna bug me until I actually double check something. It's the programmer side of me. 592.
Love the animation, by the way.
Oh yeah, he did an immaculate job. That was 10 seconds. So something's failing on the registration. Okay, it must have been a recent change with the civilian evacuation edits. Because that was working before. Oh, I know what that is. Yeah, I know what that is. It's a data type conversion. Yeah, I know. It's the currency system. So one of the things that we were working on was the currency, like I mentioned before, with the biomass and the DNA and the cache and the doctrine points, is that's using like a currency system that was kind of inspired from like Stellaris per se, or like Total War. But we can redeploy that for different factions. So, like, let's say when we add in like dynamic civilian groups, we can add a supply currency within like 5 minutes. And it's just a matter of like, how do you get supply? What do you spend it on? Because the currency system supports everything. It's very like wild card in terms of basically its implementation, to where like it could be anything and be specific to a faction. So you can add different currencies, and currencies could be food, water, whatever. Currencies is a universal programming term. So you figure it's one of those things where like it's like those little back end systems that we've been working on this week to set the foundation for everything that's going to come later on, and making sure that it supports co-op, because that's the biggest thing: the saving system and co-op. We said we were going to do the saving system last, but I've already kind of put in the saving and loading for the DNA drops. I put in the saving and loading for the evacuation, condemning and purging. We're still working on obviously this element, so there's no save and load for this. But we're going to be doing like these base elements. The saving and loading, I think for the most part, that's going to be kind of wishy-washy for the first couple of days up to a week as we iron out the kinks, is like the actual AI coming in, walking in, getting scanned, going off to those departments that we talked about last week. That's going to be the element that's going to be very wishy-washy for save support. Now, the other thing that I do want to mention is I was talking to some of my artists, because like we were in a public Discord channel about a week ago, and I think it was Digital that was like, It'd be great if we had a gate here. And I was like, well, let me see what I can do. So we did add support for a snappable double gate. Let me find that picture. Hold on. So we got a gate sized up, and we're going to be looking into getting that in there. So that way you can put infantry gates and you can put normal gates. So you can slam that bitch shut the moment things go wrong. A bunch of infected are coming. Maybe there's a contagion event just in that building, and you want to trap your security services or your operators in there to clean it out. I mean, you could just lock it down and then wait for people to show up and then open the gate and be like, okay, go in and kill everyone. Okay, great, it's pacified. Okay, we're turning on civilian evacuation again. Because the idea is, in my mind, what makes the most sense is like when you have an infection event inside the terminal, you lock it all down, and if people die in here or get trapped, that's on them. Send security, open the gate, go and kill everyone. So you figure that way it allows you a way of like mitigating the exposure to your base, because a civilian hold, yeah, it has 100 health right now, dev numbers, but the final version is going to have a lot of health because they can still destroy the building from the inside. Like they can go over here and hit the walls and break it, but the idea is it's going to be reasonable enough to where, like, if there is a turn event in these structures, it's going to take a sizable amount of hits to destroy it, so you can have those moments where it's like, oh, the infected turned in this thing and they're trapped. So, like, now they're trying to either destroy the structure and release themselves, or destroy a gate and break out, or you're going to go in there, open a gate with a team of people, and go in and shoot everyone. So, I think that it's going to be very great for the amount of immersion and, like, little moments that are going to pop up when you're playing the game. So, yeah, no, like, and let's see. That beauty got in. And you can see when I click on it right now, the civilian hold widget's not coming up because there's no power. I'm going to have to get with Derek, and we're going to have to tweak that so it still comes up, but the buttons are grayed out. But you still should be able to see all the data. You just can't change anything. You can't manage anything. Because the idea is that this structure is how you kind of basically manage, like, the flow of people across the map. So you can set, like, where people are going from zone to zone to zone. So that way you can build one of these somewhere and then be like, oh, everyone in A go to B and then C and D or whatever. So you'll be able to build a fixed amount of one of these. And we'll be testing that to kind of see how it feels and adjusting as needed based off of feedback. Let me see something. Is that actually... No, I didn't think that worked. That's more of a placeholder. Because if you click on that, it'll drop your... It'll just jump your camera to the thing. Yeah, because again, like, this is going to be just basically like in Legacy. You can choose if people show up on foot, wait for a car, or do both. So that'd be your civilian orders, a little icon here. Like, your civilian orders are like that drop down where it shows, like, what are your rules for intake? What do you do when someone's unknown? What do you do when they're infected and you know for sure? What do you do when you know for sure they're clean? And obviously those are all based off of your screening procedures and your upgrade level in that structure. Martial law is coming in next week. Again, like, we're trying to get, in my mind, we need to get, like, the top-down systems, the simulation aspects of, like, the world as a play, a whole. To, like, get this drop-down beautiful, get it working, get it completely reliable. Where, like, if I do this, and I click back, it doesn't reset. Because, again, that's the reason why it's not public yet. And then, you know, getting martial law set up. What does that mean? That's like, it slows the infection in the zone by half or by, like, 70 to 80%. But it pisses people off. So you're going to start ticking reputation. So then at that point, it's like, if you get an incursion in your zone, you can immediately build a civilian administration structure. Or you might just want to build these on your frontiers anyway. So that way you can manage and kind of administrate those zones and be like, hey, we have an infection event. 2 pods just popped up. There's a gas tower. Let's slow how quickly the virus can spread in the zone. So you go to you build one of these structures in that zone. You turn on martial law, and you do curfew, where it's like they have to be in by 8 o'clock, or I think it's like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or full. You're not allowed outside. We don't care about your civil liberties. And that's going to severely hamper that tick rate. It's like, if you go over here, you can see they're passively infecting people. That's going to get ramped hard to where it's like you actually have more time to respond to an infection event in your zone. So that way it's giving you more, like, tools in your utility belt to kind of like fight the infection and to outthink them. As you can see right now, they're feeding. They got 2,000 people right now. So that's 2,000 people they can send to your walls within the confines of their pop. So they're going to just be, spending that, just like you spend your currency with their biomass with your cash. So we figure, and that was the other thing, we were working on that infection bar because like anyone that does programming or does like game design in terms of like replication would know you don't want to send a shit ton of int32s for every data type. And then when those numbers get obsessively large, like in late to mid game, you're going to have like huge ballooning in terms of like, like the sizes and whatnot if you're sending too much data. So that was the other thing we were doing this week is profiling, doing little tests, seeing what the cost was, and then reevaluating and tweaking things. So then that way we don't put it out and then it's a shit show for the replication costs. Because we spent weeks last month ironing out the replication costs and fixing the desyncs and the stuttering and like the weird like oddities when you would have like units start like teleporting. So we don't want to go back to that. So that was one of the other things that we've been kind of doing is essentially like profiling and just kind of tweaking that. And then adding like per se like what's the word? Managers. Where you send it to the server and then clients might get that request 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 30 seconds later. Obviously, it's never going to be that long. It's more so like 3 to 5 seconds, which is typically imperceivable to the end user. But we batch it. So then that way it's like, okay, 5,000 people died. Let's batch that together. Let's not send a series of calls. Let's just send one. Accumulate the delta. And then by the time that it's ready to go out, if nothing is like not too much has changed, pack it into a payload, fast array that bitch, and send it out. So that's one of the biggest things we've been doing is just kind of like making sure that the tech is there to support it from the back end. Because you figure when you're programming any kind of game, co-op, multiplayer makes everything 2 to 3 times harder just by default. Because you have to do it one way when you do it in single player, you do it completely fucking differently when you do it in multiplayer. Completely. Different flow, different way you save the game, different way you interact with data, everything changes. So that was one of the biggest things with the rebuild is just kind of like cementing that, getting it all in a place where it's nice, it works, and it's stable. Now, I do know there are some performance regressions that we're going to have to look into for the mid to late game. Those are on our backlog. We're working through those. If you got save files with like horrible performance, drop them in our master thread. When I have some free time, I try and load those up and make tweaks here and there. Again, like give us a little bit more time for April to get to that polished period of just solidifying everything. And that's going to be another good period of time where we can just kind of look at those save files and iron out any more relating kinks for like lower spec machines. So we are conscious of that, and that is something that we're tracking and we're looking into like improving now, and then a lot more going into the future. One else thing that I will say is that there was this really obnoxious thing for my operator players out there. Do I have one still alive? Did you all die? Damn it. Yeah, they got like bombed on from the opening no. Oh, those used to be operators, but now they're engineers. I thought they got bombed on the opening salvo because those blow up guys just mech charged that line. So the other thing, which I'm not going to show because it'll take too long, was that there was an issue with the operators where when they would see an enemy for the first time, they would like forcibly like put their gun up or whatever, or like if you had a flashlight, it would force you to aim. We did fix that. It was an RTS regression where the RTS, because technically what we ended up doing was we made it to where whenever you turn on a flashlight for an RTS unit, see there it is right there? Gun's always forward. Because the flashlight's for you. Like you realistically, it's for you for your ambience and just kind of being able to like see where they are, what's going on. So like if I turn off the flashlight, she's going to go down to relax pose. But there was a bug where when you turned that on and you were playing as the operator, it would basically like gun straight up, like you're going to aim. And it was just really awkward. So we did fix that going into the week. because this is one of those little small quality of life that we put in from Legacy. It just makes it to where it's more thematic, and it just allows you to see what's going on. So you can have a better gauge of like, oh, okay, cool, blah blah blah. Like I can actually see is actually useful. Besides a bunch of flashlights that are just like at an angle because they use that sling where their gun is always like looking down towards their left leg. And it was like, yeah, that looks kind of cool, but it's kind of falling in between when it is actually like useful for the end user. So we ended up making that change behind the scenes. Like it wasn't really talked about that much, but it did cause that regression for little Timmy here. So we did go in and fix that for the operators, and that's going to be coming out on experimental in the next like 30 to 40 minutes after this podcast. I'll be releasing a patch for that. Let me check my notes here. I show the DNA collection device. Yeah, what's up? Oh shit! Right. Since we're already on that, let me bring up what Michael's been cooking. So
And everything's been able to be easily covered in this one area.
no, yeah, because the thing is
area.
that map is kind of like a scratch pad for testing all the mechanics at scale. So we don't have to load into like the sexy or bigger maps and then be like, oh, because it takes too long to load that map all the time. We need to test the mechanics and systems quickly and efficiently. That'll be the map where we test simulated evacuation. We'll get a level designer to go in there and fill in some basic geometry. But for the most part, it's going to be kept ugly and simple. So we can load in there and test every mechanic in the game at value, at scale, quickly and efficiently. And then we obviously scale up to the real maps when we cook a build. Okay, so let me go into you. I didn't really talk about this too much last week because like you figure, let me see if I can cheat and show it. Otherwise, I'll have to load up the game because I don't. Oh, I think I can copy my operator over from the Steam build to the editor build, and then I should be able to get my progression for my operator. Hold on, it has the shader compile. Give it a second, the shader compile. It's doing the shader compile, basically. Okay, so you can see that Michael did put some new weapons in. And for the people that were here last week, the MDR, the MP5, the MK9, the RX12, like these beauties. This gun is so broken. You want a broken shotgun? Take this baby out. You can literally snipe them with this gun sometimes. Like the actual like shotguns. The cone is very compact and very small, so it doesn't spread as much as like the other shotguns. So it's a lot more like impactful in terms of basically its damage and how effective it is for like mid to late game. So it's not as good as like aerial, like what's the word am I thinking of? Like crowd control, but it's great for like sustained, like single target damage from the amount of pellets that are being fired because it doesn't spread out as much as the other guns. So Michael's been kind of like going through his like jam of basically going in and trying to get the remainder of the weapons in. So you got the MP5, this sexy butte. So that got put in, and you figure like he got all the attachments in, and got all the base balance in. So he's gonna be just kind of listening to see what you guys have to say about that. But you guys already know about that if you guys play experimental every day. So what I'm gonna do is let me show you guys some of the other stuff he's been working on. So these are the other 4 guns that are coming in this week. Let me open up my browser, paste it in. So let me open up his list of what I was supposed to read out. So you got the HK416, the AK85, the XM45, and the AUG A3. And these are guns that are coming in for the operator in the next couple of days. And the idea is in that way you can do your attachments, do your loadouts, and it'll give you a level of variety for your RTS TPS heroes. So these beauties are coming in. Hang tight for those. There's still about another 4 to 6 more weapons that are missing. So he's kind of like hauling ass to try and get all those situated. I don't think we're gonna. Let me see what the time. He might meet his goal of getting in the remainder of all the weapons in by the 31st, but we'll see. Worst case, it bleeds over a tidbit into April because we still got to put the Deagle and a couple other things in. Like we're putting in the Desert Eagle and a bunch of other guns. And then we're setting up the foundation for the people that do play operator here to where the operators have a 3rd slot. So that's part of that operator polish that I put on the main menu last night. So like if you load up the build, let me go to my Steam. You'll see that on experimental, there's a new to-do list. New list, per se, in terms of the order of operations that we're going to be executing on. Let me just move this up. Hold on, it's loading. You can see, in fact, I have to, oh, wait, hold on. Oh, you know what? I lied. I had to put out the patch. And the newer version, it just basically says civilian evacuation, and then it says operator and general polish, Leviathan, LCAC, and dynamic civilian groups. So I got to put that patch out. I'm mistaken. I haven't released that patch yet. So we figure that is something that we are working through, and that we're going to be getting you guys some more weapons to get more variety in. So just hang tight a little bit longer so we can get the final assortment in. And then going into April, we're going to look into adding in that third slot for just the operators. So that way they have more utility and you don't feel stupid. Not because, like, you figure right now, there's no reason to bring in a pistol. Maybe you could make the argument with the Desert Eagle that can be used to kill the Juggernauts. Because, I mean, it's basically a 50 cal round. It's broken. But you figure, like, it's one of those things.
Yeah. I can see Silent Song standing his ground with the fucking Teagle against the Juggernaut.
Well, because, like, that gun's gonna have insane penetration. Because some of the other guns, like the shotguns or whatever, where you shoot someone with an infected, the bullet does go through based off of the caliber that Michael and Leon set up, so they can set a penetration chance per se. And the idea is through that penetration chance, they can be like, oh, well, like, it goes through 30% of the time, and then it could go through like a maximum of like 3 to 5 guys, and then it tapers off. So we figure it's going to be interesting because that Deagle, like the M107, does penetrate like 3 to 5 people in most cases for like the guard towers, especially blow up guys. Those are the blow up guys' worst nightmare. Where you actually have at least one of those guard towers set up and they're just sniping people, and you put them at just the right angle, they're going to take out an entire line of people. So that's a beaut there. Let's see, do we have it? Oh, right. Let me bring up the new civilian meshes for civilian evacuation. So, okay, let me bring up my list.
Collateral.
Bring that up and share it. So here is the other thing that Michael's been working on, which is the civilian meshes. So kind of going through, getting them all set up, so that way when we are ready next week, because like right now, we are like, I think in the grand scheme of things, it'll probably take us another day or two to get the civilian hold situated. So Monday, Tuesday, civilian hold UI, getting the cross-zone evacuation sexy, making sure there's no bugs, fixing the visual issues, setting up the martial law. And then the next thing is going to be buses. Because we're gonna bite off the hard part. And like what we're trying to do is we're trying to get everything up to the intake, and then focus on the intake for the rest of whatever long it takes. Because you figure, we think that the buses will probably take us 1 or 2 days going into next week. So that way our goal would be is like around like Wednesday, Thursday of next week is when we start on the actual physical intake. And we get that set up. So people start showing up at your hold. And you have like basic blockout structures for like the 5 divisions. Now by then Dimitri should have the base civilian hold filled in. But I mean, he's in Israel right now. So shit's crazy. Everyone here watches the news. So it's one of those things where it's like we're kind of playing it by ear. Because sometimes he has to run to the bomb shelter so he doesn't die. So deadlines be damned sometimes. So it's one of those things where like just keep in mind that's one of the constraints that we're gonna have going on in terms of like, hey, some of the assets are gonna be in a blockout form a little bit longer than we'd like because of world events. You know, so we'll get the content out there from a programming standpoint, but some of the assets might be a little bit ugly on experimental for like a week, 2 weeks, ideally when things calm down. And then, because that's why I'm kind of also saying that it's going to be like, I think it's like what, the 21st? I would probably expect like civilian evacuation to be done in its base form around the 27th to the 31st. And then that's going to be that incubation period where it's like we'll take the 23rd and the 24th. We'll get in the remainder of like the civilian hold and all the other stuff I mentioned. 24th, 25th, 26th buses, unless it goes faster than we think. And then 25th to the 27th, somewhere around there, we're going to start on the divisions. Him and I will split up. I'll do half. He does half. And then you figure we'll reconvene, not do any save system support because we want to stay fluid. We want to just kind of get the base layer set in. Put up an extreme disclaimer on experimental saying, look, if you're starting a game past this date, it's not going to save and load for civilian evacuation. Put another warning when you build the structure for the first time. So a lot of people don't like to read. So then that way it's obvious, like, why is my civilian evacuation broken? Did you save? Because it's not ready yet. Like, it's just a base early version. So we can just get it out to you guys. You can tell us how it feels. And then we can refine and we can tweak. Because once you start to put in the save system, it starts to lock in the flow and the execution a little bit here and there. So like the other systems, like the purging and the condemning, those are so basic and so simple. There's no problem setting up the same for that. But because of the sheer complexity with just generally, the sheer complexity with like the AI and their executions and their flow and the evacuation and the Chinooks are coming in, that's why I kind of want to take it in that flow, that process, that thought process. And that way it's like we could be very fluid to suggestions and ideas. I don't have to feel like, yeah, because I don't have to feel like weighted down of like, well, if we change this, it's going to break that save logic, or they're going to break that, and you get the problem. So it's one of those things where that's my thought process from like a programmer and the game director to make it to where we can be adaptive to what you guys are suggesting. Because again, I say this again, I'll say this to death. The numbers are going to be all over the place. It's going to be fast, it's going to be too fast, it's going to be too slow. It'll be in the middle for the first couple of days, maybe up to a week, as we're working with you guys to bring it in. The same way we reined it in for like the attacking and the investigation waves. Feedback and just, what's the word I'm thinking of? Help me out there, Ivar, is the word for this. You're a bad wingman.
Hang on. Hang on. There is a word for
it's
it.
Alliteration, right? Yeah. We're basically you're alliterating through it. You're basically like testing it, seeing what feels right, putting out the base version. So
no, alliterating is something else.
Oh fuck.
What is it?
You're the English.
I know what word you want to use, but
alliteration. I'm over it.
No, alliteration.
They get the point.
Alliteration is also.
I'll look it up later. But you figure that's the biggest thing. So here, let me check my
iterative development. There we go.
Iterative development. Thank you. I'm gonna laser focus through these last things so we can get to the Q&A. We did fix so Calypso is out on experimental. We did fix a lot of the pathing issues for the vehicles and for the helicopters. Give that a try. Tell us what you think on Steam and on Discord. Because now the map rotation, I think there's like 4 maps now on Pandemic, and the 5th one coming in the next week or so. So you figure like give that a whirl. Let us know what you think. Give us some feedback there. Because you figure like we played it in isolation with people like on the Discord. They sent a shit ton of bugs that they found in Efren. He's working through it, and we've my understanding we fixed everything that's been reported. There are some oddities that we're tracking for Half Moon Bay that a couple cats have reported. So Efren's looking into those with some of the helicopter oddities around the coastline sometimes. So he did make some tweaks for that, and we're keeping an eye on that to see if that's fully resolved. It should be. I haven't heard a report. I haven't heard a ping yet. So we'll see. Crossing my fingers, knocking on wood. Let's see. Is there anything else?
Iron Wake, if we haven't.
We already did that. I did that in the beginning while you were trying to like when Discord thought you were a child, or decided to block you.
Yes. Love it when Discord does these things. When
are you going to start doing it to me? Because like you figure if you had to verify your ID and do a facial scan, that means I'm coming next eventually.
I'm disappointed that you haven't had to do it yet because
they profile you based off of the degeneracy of the Discord servers that you're in.
Okay, well, I've got a lot of I have a lot of degenerate.
Technically, that would make it to where you're less likely to get profiled if we go off of what they said. So
yeah,
that's wild that you got tagged as like a kid.
Yeah, I've got some wild fucking Discord. I'm in some wild Discords.
Oh Lord!
I'm in some
whatever stays in Vegas.
Whatever stays in Vegas. Yeah, whatever is said in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Absolutely. Let me
Guns and daggers, there we go.
see. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Let me check one more section to see if he ended up dropping those teasers. Let's see.
But yeah, I think I didn't actually have to list off the things in the list because you actually did really well, kind of flowing them into the conversation. I was kind
I've
of
been
sitting here like,
yapping for a
really?
full 2 hours almost. God help me.
Because
Well, 1
yeah,
hour.
every time you would flow into the new list item on the list, I'd kind of sit here and go, I feel useless.
Sorry. Just interlude in and just be like, hey, what do you think about this? And I'll be like, oh, that's so right. You're good.
Oh nah, I love being here because I add different types of commentary.
Oh God, it's happening. Okay, so we're gonna move into Q&A unless there's anything else you want to bring up, Durvar.
Well, that image there is wow. Um,
Yeah, that
First
art.
of all,
This is
I'd like
pure
to
art
bring
people post.
I'd like to bring up the fact that some of these screenshots people have been doing. Wow, people, you should work in cinema
Lord Jesus Christ.
because some of these screenshots look absolutely amazing.
No, like literally, I'll go through the
Like,
media screenshots channel and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, this guy is good. I want his saves.
yeah,
Like, I want
like
all
they're
your saves,
absolutely
Rudy. Like, every save, give them to me. I want to make trailers out of them. Like, just start dropping them to me in my DMs. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm not joking though, because I have to make
he's
a
joking
trailer
but not
soon.
joking.
Yeah, I have to make a new trailer for the game soon, and yeah, just saying, those would be great quick start files as like scenarios to do flashpoints of showing off gameplay, because you figure that's the biggest thing that I need to do is I need to show the rarity of gameplay in a quick digestible form of like 30 seconds 60 seconds, and then have like some kind of like building action, a drop that leads to a drop, and then the resolution, all that fun stuff. So I need to, if you could send me those, Rudy, oh my God, you'd be amazing. I see you right there hiding too. You're in the audience.
We see you. We see you. You can't hide.
Calling him out. But yeah,
Yeah.
call me later.
Call me.
Okay, so questions. What do we got for questions? If you ask the question in YouTube chat, I'm going to be catching up on that right now. If you got questions, drop them in the chat. On Discord, same thing. It looks like people have been typing for like a long time. So just copy and paste your questions in. And if you asked them previously, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Hit me with those hard ones. So I'm going to pick, let me see if there's anything on YouTube, and then I'm going to do Discord to give Discord some time to catch up. So Lovecraft asks, when do you think Severity Evac will be available? I'm gonna say the end of the month. Hell or high water. I'm gonna say 27th to the 30th. Like you figure, like the 27th to the 30th, maybe even the 31st. If it bleeds over, we'll be transparent. We'll show you guys why. We might just release like an early incubator version that has some issues for people that are just eager to be first, get their hands on it. Early adopters. Yeah, but it's always just going to be Here Be Dragons kind of deal. But we're moving really quickly. Like you figure, we already have like almost half of the civilian evacuation stuff situated. Like, if not half. Like you figure, purge is the the what do you call that? The edict for zones that is basically just like martial law. That's like a couple hours. You figure like the hardest part is just going to be the buses, and then Derek doing the UI for basically what I showed you guys earlier for like the holding sale. That's like Monday. Monday for the holding sale. Get the UI sexy, iron that out, fix some kinks, get the martial law stuff, and that's Monday. And then Tuesday we bite off the vehicles because we just want to get that the fuck over with. So we do the vehicles. The vehicles are going to introduce us to doing it, running out of the homes and running to your buses. And then the buses are going to go to the depots. And then they're going to drop them off based off of the rules in that zone. So we want to get that flow established next week and make sure it makes sense and cut out any kind of weird design issues where it's not obvious. and then towards the end of that week to the following week is going to be just like, okay, great. They show up at the holding cell. What happens now? And that's going to be what just brings it all together. Like if I were to guess, just doing the holding cell with the staff and the ugly UIs that we're going to do for the first pass for the blockouts, then we're going to pass off the winters or a UI artist to finalize. That'll probably take us about 3 to 4 days to get like what I talked about last week between me and Derek, where we're just going like, you go to sleep, okay, I wake up, I work. He goes to sleep, vice versa. We just rotate out because his sleeping schedule is wild. So like, he's up right now for like his midday. So you figure like that way it works out perfectly to where we basically just do like a good little team there of just rotating in and out. So that's going to kind of be the workflow. So that way we can really quickly get the civilian evacuation base layer out. So that's why you might not see me on public Discord much, if not at all, for the next couple of days up to a week. And that's probably why I'll be really, really scarce on the Steam forums and for Discord. I might just barely reply, barely be on voice, because you figure like everyone right now from a programming standpoint needs to lock the fuck in to basically get everything situated. So I don't have time to sit on the Discord right now until I can like mute, turn on my music, and just work all day. I just put myself on D&D. So I'm not ignoring anyone, but that's the thought. Because I have like I'm looking at my DMs right now. There's like 20 plus DMs. And there's like a shit ton of Steam notifications. So like if you guys replied to a Steam thread or a Discord thread I haven't gotten back yet, just bear with me. There's a lot of moving parts right now. And I'm just trying to get that out to you guys as soon as possible for the civilian evac. So that's it for the one YouTube question. If you guys have more, drop it in there. So for Discord, what do we got?
We got Phoenix with his hand up. We got Imperial Guard with their hand up. We've also got a few questions in text. So
Let's mix it up.
we'll
Nobody
bring in-
ever talks on voice. So let's get Imperial Guardsmen.
Yep. Oh, you also got Pre or Pry. I'm not sure how to
Oh, wait,
pronounce
we're going to get Pride X and Phoenix. I see them holding. All right, Guardsmen, hit us with it. What's your question? Did he go AFK?
They must have gone AFK.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll pop him
Imperial
back
Guardsman?
down.
Hello?
I think he's dead.
There
Okay,
you
we'll
go.
move him back and we'll come back to him. So we're going to do Pry.
He's dead.
I think you already know my question. I ask it every single time we
I
do
hate you.
this.
Not
The
yet.
a blow up combo when
I'm stalling out right now. It's just like the other stuff we talked about for the operator. I'm just waiting. I'm biding my time for like the AI stuff next month, but
yeah,
it's
alright.
coming. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. Phoenix, and then we're gonna do the question for, or he just linked it. Well, why can't I see his? Oh, because the stupid streamer mode's on.
Nope.
Okay, we're gonna do your question, Phoenix, and I'm gonna answer the question for the other guy. So, what's your question, Phoenix?
My question is, can there be like some type of upgrades or mods to the civilian evacuation? Like, I know I mentioned it about the infantry thing, but like having like guard towers that you can just upgrade into it.
So, realistically, the upgrades are gonna be just for the civilian. Right now, the DNA is exclusively for civilian evacuation upgrades. So some of them we've revealed, some of them we're still working on in the back end. Like the most basic layer ones are just improving your level of detection. You start out with nothing, and then you get a hand scanner, and then you get like an actual infrared scanner. Being able to improve the efficiency of like just generally like being able to cure them later on. Improving like the small little modifiers here and there. Some of them are going to come online based off of like the first base pass, or we just make optimizations. So like there are going to be upgrades for the DNA and for the structures. Like another good example is like the crematorium for the actual like body pits, where you're going to have to spec into that and get the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, so you can burn the dead bodies that you get, and then be able to buy that and put it on as like an upgrade. What's another good example? It kind of varies. Like you figure there's still some base ideas, And we're going to be adding more based off of what feels right, and just as we play it, and like adjust it or whatever. 'Cause it's more alliterative. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Rove. I gotta answer. I don't know why I can't see your name. Hold on. Let me turn off streamer mode. So we're gonna turn off hide
So
personal.
apparently,
There we go. It's hide personal
apparently
mode.
Imperial Guardsman was having an issue with his audio.
Okay.
So, do you want to try again, Imperial Guardsman? Do you want to try coming up
Well,
again,
hold
or
on.
do you want to?
I gotta answer one question real fast because this guy's been waiting patiently, and then we'll do Imperial Guardsman. So CG Wolf, I don't know if I said your name correctly, asked, "Is there a way to evacuate the pilot and troops to parachute down?" Right now, when a helicopter dies, it rolls randomly if the pilot dies or lives, based off of just generally a couple of different factors in terms of how the helicopter was hit. So if they land, they're automatically going to parachute down. And like you figure, there's not really much you could do about that right now to improve the survivability. It's kind of random to a certain degree, but it also depends on where you're over. Like if you're over water, he's dead. But like in certain cases, it will typically they survive. So Seeks also asked if we could look at a weapon comparison system in the future before we get a load more weapons, so it's much easier to compare the stats from one weapon to another. Far easier than counting pixels. Also be great for having more accurate info for game testing in a way to know when something is right or off. So, are you talking about the operator window, Wolf? Okay.
It's Thiox.
Yeah, I can. So, just the operator window is being worked on. We have some mock-ups that we're designing right now. I can't show anything right now at this moment because they're super whip, but that UI is being torn out and redone. Like all of that's going to be cleaned up and modernized going into April. That's why we're giving like operator polish a solid week or two. So just bear with us because that is on the backlog. So yes, for number 3, you're correct. The operator will get access to the ability to construct. We need to make like a blueprint building system for the operators. Again, that's part of April for me, of like doing that operator polish, because like, great, you can do it in RTS, but the operators need to be able to contribute more. They need to be able to go to a neighborhood and just start throwing down sandbags, start throwing down walls, build a barracks, build a motor pool, and they need to be able to recruit. It could be as simple as walking up to a barracks, pressing E, and then the same window that pops up for RTS pops up and you get a mouse. It doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to work. So you figure those are all things that we're looking at going into next month after civilian evac to just iron out the kinks and improve the overall loop. One other thing that I'll mention very briefly is that we're going to be experimenting with vehicle driving for the operators as well. So that's something that's kind of like on the wish list right now, because technically all the vehicles in the game support driving for the operators. We just haven't had the time to R&D it and get it like feeling good, because like all the vehicles in the game have been set up for RTS in terms of their controls and their mechanisms. So we'll probably have to have a different profile for when an operator takes control of, say, an Abrams or an Ajax, where they're responsive to what you would expect in, say, like a Battlefield or an Arma or whatever. So just keep in mind, like, there's a list that I'm just biding my time for operator to flesh them out. But because the civilian evacuation is just the utmost importance right now, and it won every poll that we put out, that's priority number 1. And then once priority number 1 is over, then I can just start to like fix what's already there and like iron out the operator itself. I'll talk to Dimitri about your 4, about having the DNA melt. It's actually very doable.
Ew, melt.
Yeah,
Ew.
aerosol or melting. Or you can even have
The
it to where
forbidden-
you can have them where they're decaying. Technically, you do that with a material dynamic instance, and you could have
the
it to where.
forbidden ice cream.
Well, you could do a local simulation. You take the server time of when it spawned, and you could have it to where like it on reps at, or like there's some kind of like deterministic way, a percent And then you could have it to where, like, oh hey, like if a client joins in mid game and the DNA is still there, it could look like the DNA is rotting, or like the skin is starting to like disappear. I know Dimitri will love that because like he eats, he breathes, and sleeps the visual elements of the game as like his purview. So I'm gonna copy and paste that and put that in his reports channel for when he wakes up tomorrow to look into, because he'd be the one to act on that. I do like that idea quite a bit, and it would add some visual flair and give a visual indicator of like how much more time you have instead of just doing some like boring little clock elapsing icon. You could look at it and see like a percent where like half of it's decayed or 3/4 of it are decayed. So then at that point you would know like, oh, that sample is not going to be fresh that much longer and it's going to despawn. So I don't know. Let me marinate on that. I'm going to talk to some people, see what we can get figured out. The Machinima replay tool functionally works in the game right now with co-op support. It just needs there's like 10% of it that still needs some work. You can do it via console commands if you look up demo scrubbing, or if you look at the playtesters chat or announcements channel, there is the console commands you can use to record and to play back demos. That's more of a wish list like thing. So it's something that I'm gonna like personally take on sometime after April. If I can, I might sneak it in April, but it's not really like a mainline thing. But it is something that personally I want to do because it would also make my life easier for making trailers. Because I need to be able to show the game quickly and efficiently, and I don't want to have to sit there and save, reload, save, reload, save, reload to get good camera shots. I just want to play the game by myself or with other people, save a demo or like a recording, and then go back and play it back like a movie, and then scrub it, rewind it, fast forward it, change the camera perspective, run it again, lock on the units. Because that's the biggest thing is when I do the demo scrubber, I don't want to just do it as like a more traditional like Fortnite or Siege, where it's like you switch between people and then you scrub, and then you can rewind, you can fast forward, you can pause. I want to do it where there's like camera settings. There's preset camera transitions or preset like camera locations where you can do tracking shots. Because I'm looking at it from more of a cinematic element of movies. Like, Machinima. I love video editing. So it's one of those things where I'm coming at it from like telling a story. So that way, like you can go, you can upload your like someone like take an example like the screenshots Big Rudy plays. You could go and you could take one of his saves, take a replay, upload it somewhere, and a YouTuber could turn it into like a commentary. And just commentary an entire war effort, or even just having it to a multiplayer session. People can like have a repository where they throw up their little profiles or whatever, their demos, and then people can take those and just upload them on YouTube channels and do whatever. That's the biggest thing for me, is allowing that level of flexibility, because I personally used to. I don't know if anyone remembers Company of Heroes 1's replay system. Fucking amazing.
I used to use that all the time.
Their cinematic mode, where they would like do the letterbox and then they would dynamically like make a movie out of what your game. And then like you figure it was so cool. It was so fun. The Company Heroes replay system. So that's kind of like my inspiration. It's figuring out how to recreate that in the Unreal Engine. Even if I don't get as far as having like a dynamic camera, because this thing would legitimately direct your shots, putting tracking shots and pannings, and I don't know how the fuck they did it, but it was ahead of its time. I've never seen it in an RTS game to date, but it was like you could just play the most craziest session and go back and play it like a movie. So anyway, I digress. Anything for YouTube, and then we're gonna pop over. Nothing for YouTube. Okay, so let's see here. Kat asked the question.
So,
Yeah.
I was about to say, I've got Guardsman question here if you want to hear it.
Okay.
Or when you want to hear it.
Hit me with it.
Is there a chance to make Purge into more Spec Ops operations so no one knows that it was you, CERC, that did it, and put blame on other factions? If we could look into weapon comparison system in the future, we can get load more weapons, so it's much easier to compare the stats from one weapon to.
Oh, I got that one already. Yeah. Let
Yeah.
me think about that one. Like a false flag attack. When you blame
Yeah,
it.
kind of like a false flag attack. Yeah.
Let me. That wouldn't make sense until dynamic civilian groups in quarter 2. Let me mull on that. Bring that up to me in about a month and a half. Like, yeah, bring it up in about a month and a half. Because then at that point, we'll be through April. We will be through all the polish and the refinements, and that's where that podcast is where we're going to be basically setting the tempo of what we're doing with dynamic civilian groups. Because at the end of April, going into like, let's see, retarded. Going in April, going into May is when I'm going to have another like big Steam post where I announce what's going on in the dynamic civilian groups, and then letting you guys know like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is the timeline. This is the last element that's missing from the rebuild. Because yeah, so let me get back to you on that one. I don't have an answer at this moment. For Kat's question, in the future during the operator pass, could it be more possible to see special equipment or tools that we can put in the third slot instead? Examples would be a motion detector, special AP ammo for greater penetration, incendiary grenades, etc. So the process or the thought that we have with the operator is that we want to keep those reserved to the abilities. And then we wanted to have the primary, the secondary, the treachery slot more so like your primary, your secondary weapon. But your primary would be like your assault rifle, your shotgun, whatever, your sniper. Your secondary being like a smaller like pistol, machine gun, like small, like an MP9 or something like tiny. And then your third one being like your special, almost like the division if I were to give a case study or example reference. So it's like we're kind of referencing that direction. Let me think about that because you figure what you're talking about to me makes sense more as abilities. I think that because the ability system for the operators is undercooked. There's a lot more like interesting things that we could do for the operator abilities to like have one-off abilities, have one-off call-ins, like little things here and there that make the operator shine as like hybrid units. Because right now, operator units are only relegated to like the abilities that other units have right now. We haven't been able to get to the point of adding in ones that are uniquely crafted for just operators. Everything's just a trickle-down effect. We need to get to that point for the operators. And some of this could come next month when we do the operator polish, is figuring out like, because there's still some, like you said, there's still some work to be done with like the gate interaction, building recruiting. We're going to be putting in like the civilian evacuation iteration, but it's like we need to do more with the abilities. We just make it to where like, yeah, they have laser detonators that can call in airstrikes, like that kind of stuff. Like, so I think that's more better suited for the ability system and just capitalizing on that and just having cooldowns and having costs. So when an operator, pulls out a special ordinance or a special ability, there's a monetary cost for that person. We're gonna have to just wait and see how that feels because like the motion detector, that could be an ability. Special AP ammo, definitely ability. Greater penetration. Yeah, all of these sound like really cool abilities, especially incendiary grenade. CERC commanding officer asked about mass entity. We did a deep dive at the mass entity, but there were some elements of it where it didn't make sense. Like you figure we're probably gonna end up having to just do a newer version of what we did in Legacy, which is that we're gonna just use the older one for inspiration for the NPCs that are in the map because we've learned a lot in terms of basically subsystems and batching work and asynchronous queries and everything else. Where like there's other things that we can take advantage of. But the problem with mass entity is that when we were looking at it a week or so ago, it's still very, very early. And its gameplay integration is alpha. I think I don't need to say more. Besides just like literally in big floating text, they say, please do not ship this in your games. Please don't do it. So you figure we were researching it and we were looking at it and it was like, it just didn't make any sense. They literally have a warning saying, use this for evaluation, use this for projects that aren't going to be released anytime soon, kind of deal. but like don't ship this in a live game. So it's one of those things where we're like, and we're at 5.4. So the other alternative would be updating engine versions to use a newer version of Mass Entity. That's another reason why we didn't push putting the civilians on the street yet, because you figure me and Derek are going to get like the mobs working and get them situated. And then we might just have to put off putting the civilians in the physical city that walk on the city walks, there's the blocks or whatever. And so him and I could get together and do an evaluation run of updating the Unreal Engine 5.6 or 5.7 or 5.8 and evaluating to see how stable the Mass Entity plugin is at that point. Because the base element of it is like beta, but then there are sub modules that are alpha. So it's like, and if you want to do gameplay, you want to talk to those systems and do like balance or, you know, like have like really integrate AI outside just walking around, touching on a cell phone, sitting on a bench, we need more complicated than that. They need to have like a base AI where they understand you got to stay in this zone. You have to respect the infection. The infected have to be able to kill them. What else was there? They need to know how to go inside buildings. They need to know how to function with the civilian evac. So it was a bunch of layers where it was just, it didn't make sense. Like, because when you use an alpha module or alpha plugin like that, different, there's instability we can't fix. We rely on Epic. We're at 5.4. So if we build all the way out on that system that they say not even to ship with, and then we run into a fatal bug at 80%, 90%, even 100% of implementation, we're fucked. Our only option is to go beg Epic and hope they fixed it in 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, or 5.8, or redo the whole system. We don't want to fuck around and find out. So in our mind, it made more sense to just take the inspiration of the older civilian evac in terms of how we did the mobs, set up the people on the streets, do a better sub-slicing of how we determine who's visible and who's not, set up the tracking data, because in Legacy, we had tracking data that was server authoritative, or rather, there was no server data, but the idea is it's on the server. So the idea is like, as like someone's walking around, like your server was calculating where people were based off of very slow tick rates of like every 0.5, every 1 second, every 2 seconds. It would pull, where is this person gone? Has he turned this corner yet? Has he walked down that alley? So it's like taking those systems and pushing them further based off of all the things that we've learned. So it sucks, but it's not really much around. There's not much we can really do about it. Because like you figure, I don't want to fuck around and find out. And I'm pretty sure you guys don't want us to. So, you know, I think that in the worst case scenario, if we get to the point at the end of the month where we're like, maybe we shouldn't put the people out on the street. Maybe in the beginning of April, before we even think about doing operators, maybe we do like a test evaluation on a newer version of the engine, and we just see how bad it goes. What kind of issues do we run into? Like do a little test build and see how stable the engine is, and then that way we gain better chaos vehicles, better chaos destruction, better engine stability, performance, replication. The list goes on. And everyone gains new tools to play with because like the engine changes drastically every 3 to 4 months. They add like new crazy features into the Unreal Engine every couple of months. So like you figure we're behind at this point by like 2 years. I think it's 5.44. So, but you know, it's just one of those things where you don't want to constantly keep changing versions because it invalidates your code and creates new bugs and issues. So that's the other part of it. Let's see. What else have we got here for questions?
Looking through, I don't think I can see any more. Do we have any more?
Looks like Big Rudy asked a question about a doctrine's upgrade for unarmored light vehicles to help counter the escalation of the infected. Is armoring up the Ajax a little bit more? I'll save that for right now.
Really good idea.
I'll save that because we are looking into some like like doctrines can be changed and like adjusted here and there based off of feedback. Some of this. Why is Snip Tool not letting me take a picture? Oh my god, Discord's on that stupid mode where you can't take a screenshot because it thinks that it's gonna show up on OBS. Yeah, because okay, that's cute. Okay, I'll have to just come back to that. I'm gonna save a link to your message in my reports channel because I don't want. It gets to a point where I need to a certain degree, I need to stop adding and lock in what's already there because we need to get to civilian evac, operator polish, AI tweaks, AI improvements, tenants, Chelsea, Leviathan, LCAC, LHA6, and then at that point, dynamic civilian groups. And then after some dynamic civilian groups, it's going to be the campaign and world events. So you figure like to a certain point, I have to be like, those are good ideas that I'd probably want to save for like a special light vehicle armored doctrine later down the year. Where it's like you get this doctrine to just play a certain way with like their whole thing, like a thing is fast mobilization, really quick ground vehicles, like that kind of stuff. Because I want to get to the point of making new divisions for CERC. I don't want to put everything under the current umbrella. I kind of want to do what Company Heroes 2 did almost, where it's like, hey, like you have this general or this person that runs this branch and give CERC more of a personality. So as things like calm down and like, all the base stuff is in, those are things that I want to kind of like get a concept artist to design the branch leads, get some voice acting, and basically get it to where like, oh hey, like this person runs that branch and that person runs the air recon branch you have right now, move some stuff around and make it to where like, okay, like you actually have more choices to jump between per se. Some branches might only go 1 or 2, some might be only like 2 or 3, where it's like they're only meant for mid game, late game, but they're like they bring a whole new way of playing, like a pyromancy doctrines where they're all built around incendiary and fire and like napalm, that kind of stuff. So your idea is really good, Big Rudy, but just keep in mind I want to save that later down the line for like new stuff. Let's see. Same thing for your Atlas idea. I would save that for like a new infantry doctrine or something like that. I'm gonna save these and then I'm gonna come back to these later down the line. I'm gonna talk to Dimitri about some of these. Okay, what else do we have for questions? So Jay Schwaks, I can't say your name correctly, I'm sorry, asked, are birds going to have some sort of pond spawning factor if they don't have a spread threat? They're pretty much low impact in my opinion. So far in my recent playthrough, I've only seen them in one game and they were pretty borked. I'd like to see an increased presence. So what day were you on? What was the amount and frequency that you saw them? Because you figure that'll give me what I need. If you want to give me a save file where it's going on too, you can do that and tag me in it on Discord. But I'll take a look at that and I'll elevate that to Leon and Michael so they can investigate that. Because that is a cause for concern, because the birds seem to be like swamping you in the mid to late game in terms of like just everywhere. Replacing the spitters as like a late game counter for mass air, especially because people love air. So yeah, when you get a chance, drop that in there. Maybe make a Steam thread, and then I'll try and get to that, or Derek will, because next week we're going to be working on civilian evacuation, of course, but we still got to do some bugs, and we need to do some like balance changes here and there, like what Schwartz is saying for like the birds. So we're going to be like fitting it in on a day-to-day basis, so we can make sure that we're like hitting all the bells and whistles per se. So hitting it now in a thread would help us out greatly. Let's see. You see any more questions, Terrifier?
Hang on, I'm just ow.
Can we get a system?
Quickly walked
Oh,
away.
Phoenix asked a question. Can we get a
so.
system that makes units better at taking out infected using doctrines? And when you say better at taking out infected, do you mean more damage or more accuracy? What's the metric that you're kind of gauging it off of? Damage. Right now, we were thinking more so of having it of resilience. We were thinking that the DNA research would be infection chance, infection spread rate, how much the acid affects your units, or rather the duration, how much blow-up guy damage does to you. We were and then it's bitter acid. Yeah. So the idea was like we were looking at stuff like that to improve the survivability of units. So that way, if you have a certain problem with spitters just boarding up your units with their acid dots, you can spec into that, give them better armor, and then that will basically make it to where they're more resilient in the mid to late game. To where if you're fighting spitters all the time, you can counter them. Let's see.
Here we go. Richard's got a question. Can we get a doctrine to kick Phoenix from the game?
You know, I think that's a good idea. Every time someone
think
just
it's a brilliant
does
idea.
it immediately finds his Steam ID and just bans him immediately.
Yep, I agree.
I
agree. It
two
should
people
definitely
agree
be
it's
done.
law.
Yep.
Well, adding on to the little doctrines thing, and we'll put a little bullseye icon, and then it has Phoenix's like Discord avatar. And whenever you buy it for 0 credits, because there's no cost for
Pretty
that.
free.
It's free.
Yeah.
Then it just kicks him out of the stuff.
It just boots him out of the game.
We're going to hell. We're going to hell, bro.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea, my brother.
Oh God, Riff, you're speaking the gospel.
Yep. Speaking the Holy Gospel.
Let's see what else we have for questions. Someone hating on Greg, Cat. I need my Leviathan.
Oh, we need Greg.
Oh yeah, Greg fucked people up. It was so good when he wasn't flying in the air like a moron. It was the funniest shit ever. It was the funniest thing ever when people would crash out and Leviathan would come up and they didn't realize they had to build a repeater. So he'd just pop up, destroy your entire base like that one beam where someone just comes in and just knocks everything off your table, kicks the table over, and then just leaves. He doesn't even bother to kill everyone. He was a dick.
And that's why I said we need Greg.
But the problem was that you figure we didn't really give a warning in Legacy. It was like day 4 or 5 kicked around, and then you would hear a sound of the map. Like the only warning we gave in Legacy was just you hear him sleeping, and you hear him moaning. So and then like if you knew the build, the Black Hawk, he was moaning because he growls. So the idea was he's moving around under the map at all times. So and when he's not moving, he's sleeping.
Well.
So the idea was that most people didn't catch on. They weren't like, because again, there's no tutorials. So it's very unfucking forgiving. So it'd be like you're scrolling through, click on the Black Hawk. Why does the Black Hawk have a thermal scanner? The fuck is this? And no one thought to buy it. You know what I mean? Because the description said it was for the Leviathan, but nobody knew what the Leviathan was. What are you going to say?
Well, see, here's my thing. People don't need to have a tutorial about the Leviathan. You know why? And yeah, they can be annoyed when he pops up.
Sure.
You know why?
Why?
Because that's Greg's whole objective is to pop up suddenly. It wouldn't work if they knew he was there.
I suppose you're right, but you figure it kind of comes down to like when we do Greg next month, like as part of the AI push. Like I'm gonna be making some adjustments to where he's not as much of a frustration mechanic, but he at least like the whole point of him is that like we added that like historical data system where they know if they can't breach a base, they flag it. And then Leviathan gets that flag and then he acts on it. Like the Juggernaut right now is acting off of like a wild dog. Every single time there's an event and a Juggernaut is free, he'll typically respond almost immediately. There's no build-up. There's no escalation. There's no, like, we need him in 5 minutes. Like, no, I got to go over there and I got to get them all. I got to go find the attack wave, group up with them, and go. But for the Leviathan, he needs to be more strategic and more like a build-up, where it's like, okay, you build your World War I trench line, you're kind of camping all game, and then they're like, you know what, we're not making any headway. Let's keep building threat. Let's save that threat. A day later, a couple hours later, they come back and they play the game. It keeps building. And then eventually, they start to basically, this is what I want to do with the attack system, is add another layer, where it's like, as that threat builds, they get higher tiered enemies within the confines of their day limits to be like, oh, okay, like we need to stop sending in this. It's not working. We need to like bulk up a little bit here from a chunkier guys. So that way we can make it harder and scale with these people's goddamn Fort Knoxes. Because some of these bases people are building are goddamn Fort Knox, where it's insane. Like I've seen people where they build
Ooh.
like bases from one side of the map to the other, and it's just sandbags and barbed wire and walls and turrets and guard towers and roaming patrols. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gonna fuck this base proper. Like,
What about? I want to pose an idea,
what?
and it may be like opening a can of worms.
Eh?
What about a procedural system that
Okay.
anytime? So it's just for multiplayer.
Mhm.
Anytime a team loses a match, it fills up like this global pool
Yeah.
of threat. This global threat.
Okay.
And anytime a team loses, it fills the threat. Anytime someone wins, it lowers it. And if the threat goes up, it makes juggernauts and Greg spawn more often.
Oh, so it's like a Helldivers thing, or it's a global
A bit
war
like a
effort.
Helldivers thing. Yeah.
Huh. I'll float that. I'll see if people like that because I do want to try it. That'd be cool to make the game more social. Where like there's like a joint effort for everyone to kind of like do that kind of stuff. That'd be like because the idea would be is Riff is you'd have a backend database like what Helldivers does, and then that backend database determines the spawn rates and the overall like success of a campaign. Or like you
Now,
might
this
have.
would be optional. You can enable it in the multiplayer settings or disable it in your sessions.
That's cool. I like
That way,
that.
if people don't want to deal with it, they can just turn it off.
Yeah, because some people kind of want to fuck with it. They want like the sweaty match right now. But then it gives you like a joint war effort because then you can have like a database, an SQL database or whatever, where it's like, this is the results of like the campaign this month or whatever. And that way you can break it up into seasons to where it's like, oh, like this is how well the war effort's going on Treasure Island or we've reclaimed it or whatever. I don't know. But something interesting is having like a war campaign. Well, for pandemic, not a real, you know what I mean? Not like a campaign, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Let me marinate on that. Talk to some people. What do you guys think in the chat? Hate it? Love it? Sucks? YouTube? Discord? Phoenix loves it. I need more. Riff likes it. Come on, peoples. What's your opinions?
Phoenix really loves it.
I would. Okay, everyone's shy.
Down's doing it.
YouTube is just lurking.
Cat's worried about the balancing, but the balancing shouldn't be too hard to handle.
I mean, that just kind of comes down to just sitting down with Michael or Leon and
Yeah.
figuring out a workflow for that because you have it's like you still have to have a clamp. You got to have a minimum and a maximum or baseline. So you figure, and then it goes left or it goes right. So like you figure, I don't know. It's an interesting idea. And the thing with the game being in the place it is and being like the social multiplayer game, but also having single player, is that we need to make sure we're like not leaving one group out and overall just enriching the entire experience. So like I need to like theory craft it and brainstorm some ideas. It seems like everyone in chat likes the idea.
Yeah, there are a few. Looks like a few people are on the fence, and some people would like to try it. I think we have a trial period with it in experimental if we get around to it.
So shots, when you get a second, you have that thread of the vehicle issues that you're running into. Make a master thread and then tag me on Monday. And I'm gonna get with Derek either on Monday or Tuesday, and we'll look at what you're saying for the vehicle pathing for whatever you're running into because we haven't changed anything with the vehicle pathing. So we're gonna have to look into that and see what's going on. What are you gonna say, Durvar?
Down makes a good point.
What?
If we're doing well in the war effort, we
Sure.
get more units on startup.
Oh, like instead of this starting like 8 or 9, you get like double or like better units.
Yeah, double or better, more experienced units.
Well, when you first start, you start out with like basic bitches, less units.
Yeah.
Just to be a dick.
Yes.
Like what? Let me marinate on this. We might have to just have a podcast in the future for this because this is like a whole subsystem on its own. But I do like it. I'm gonna put it down on my Trello as a wish list item, and then something that we can look into. Because again, I'm very conscious of new stuffs. I want to keep my timeline. I'm pretty sure everyone here wants me to keep my timeline. So, yeah, I've seen the review scores. It's gotten better, but loud and clear, people want us to hurry the fuck up. So you figure it's one of those things where it's like, we'll see. Let me think about it. What do we have for time? What's the clock at? 1 hour and 50 minutes. I'll give us 10 minutes and we're gonna wrap this up. 10 minutes, boys and girls. Good questions. Hit me with those bangers. Like, I'll give it a couple more questions and then we're gonna just wrap up at that point. And I'll take my dog out for chews off my leg.
Play Space Marine with me.
I guess.
No.
What?
Fucking
Huh?
Monster Hunter. I've been waiting till you play fucking Monster Hunter with me for ages.
Which Monster Hunter? Wild?
Wilds.
You started a new character, or were you playing it like old?
We're still doing our normal characters.
Oh, you don't want to start
We
a
got
new
to
character?
get you. No, fuck no.
You're not
We
crazy
still
like
got
I
to get
am.
you through the. We got to get you through the story on your current character.
I kind of want to start a new character though. Like, there's no point to starting a new character. Well, I want to make a new waifu though.
You can start a new character. I'm not. I don't really want to slog through the story again.
My character looks kind of fugly. I'm shitty at character creators. You know that, bro. Don't judge me. I like waifus.
Well, if you want to start a new character, I'm fine with it. I'll help you. I'll still play with you either way. I don't care.
I might just make a new waifu. Well, let me see if there's any
Yeah.
more messages in the channel. What's this? Is this a question? Is it possible for the population cap to be increased? I would love to make battalions. Yeah, you can change that in the custom game options, Alan Lee. Just be aware you have to have a better computer for it. We haven't optimized that much at all beyond 80. It's something that we're going to be looking into for going up to 120 at least. You can go up to 200, but again, good computer, good network, good video card, especially your CPU. Your CPU is going to be your biggest like limiter, a barrier of entry, especially hosting wise, because you'll bring down the whole session if you have a crappy CPU. So just be aware of that. But you could definitely do that. Let's see. So Silent Song asked the question. In Legacy, I could never get infected people because they turn too fast. Once they are reintroduced, with their infection rate be adjusted, or will we be given the option to do it ourselves? So let me just make sure I fully understand your question here. You're talking about the intake system when they would come in, or are you talking about people on the street for your question, Song? Got it. Were you evacuating from yellow or red zones or green zones? Do you remember? Everywhere.
All of the above.
And what were did you have it set to shoot people that were not infected, or like what did you have it set? Like were you like you had all the screening set up and everything?
I will agree that it was actually really hard to get infected people.
Huh. I would get them quite a bit, but you had to intentionally and get them from yellow and red zones. But like what would happen is that depending on your settings, all your infected people might have been being sent to euthanization or the cages before they turn. Because the problem was is that there was no like we had the whole like asystematic carrier system that would passively spread the virus in small concentrations. In Legacy, the only time that you would probably see it like screw you was on the carrier. Because then you could accidentally evacuate people that were infected. And then they would just run off the carrier. Because immediately after they hit the carrier deck, they would churn immediately. So that was like the major like infection event that would occur. I would agree with you. There wasn't really enough that would occur at your facilities. That's kind of like a design goal with the second version of this, is making it to where you have infection events that occur at every layer. Whether it be they're still waiting to be shot, they're in the cages, obviously they get turned to the cages. They could get turned if you let people through on the hold themselves. So those are things that we're looking at. By making it configurable, what I'll do is let's get the base version out by the end of the month, and then I'll take suggestions in terms of what you guys want to configure. Because like baseline, you're gonna be able to turn off reputation loss by shooting civilians. You'll be able to make it to where shooting civilians gives you money or takes away money. You're gonna be able to like change how much money you get per civilian evacuation person, like the individual, and you'll be able to change how many people can fit in the Chinooks, like in Legacy. So like that's the baseline. And then when we get the base system in, we'll go in and we'll look at what people are saying, see where the points of contention are, and see what needs to be configurables. So that way people can balance the game to their own whims. Because some people are going to want to increase or decrease the cost of the staff. You know, some people are going to want to lower the loss of energy when you overwork them. You know, like that kind of stuff. If you want to know context of what I'm talking about, go to the last podcast, fast forward to the last 20 or 30 minutes, or go on Steam or Discord announcements, and there's like a section that links to what I'm talking about for like the civilian evacuation plan as a whole. So I'm not. Let me get back to you on that one because you figure we're gonna have some options for like improving that. Average Jenga asked, can there be metro stations that we capture and to move troops around with? Infected can move through them also. Hold on. Let me get back to you. Ask that question next week. Yeah, come back next week and ask me that question because that's a good idea. I'm going to talk to Efren and Dimitri about that because we were supposed to use San Francisco North as an excuse to basically widen some of the metro entrances and make it to where they were just one-way lanes that would allow you to get around Half Moon Bay, Angel Island, and San Francisco. That was our way of circumventing everything being around boats. Sorry, the bridges. Because then the infected would have another mechanism for getting around. You couldn't hard block it. So they'd still be able to break through if they really needed to. But we need to R&D that. We need to figure out what kind of issues are we going to run into from a pathfinding standpoint and how hard is it going to be to implement. So that put a pin in that. And I'm going to put that in level designers chat. Give me a second. I got to write that up. Because no time but the better. Because after we get Angel Island situated, it's all fucking in for San Francisco North. No other maps are being touched. Besides like pathing or weird oddities you guys might find in the maps, it's locked the fuck in. We're full course ahead for San Francisco. I'm tired of talking about it. It just needs to happen. So let me just write up something real fast. For the San Fran, well, Bay Area map. Technically, that's what it's called. Okay, so I put that out. I'll have a meeting with my people on Monday. Let's see if that's something that we can do. Because that is something, it's a level design thing more than anything. It doesn't really involve the programmers. We just have to go in and potentially make some nav links to like ferry them along if the nav queries get too long. So we have intermediary move orders and you save them in a batch or a loop. So that way you'd be like, oh, well, you move to the entrance, and then you issue a move order down the tunnel, and then you issue a move order out of the tunnel, and then you issue the original move order. Because if you do it the other way around, where it's one long move order, it's very likely the cost of that pathfinding query is going to balloon to the point of like insanity. So it's better just to do like an intermediary handoff system when the map gets so large, when the map is so complicated. That way we can hyper optimize the movements. So let me see. Is there anything else before we wrap this up? Okay. So the riff for your thing for the operator UI. Let's see if I can find that. Here they are.
You know, operating.
So we have some mock-ups that Janari and Winters are working through. And we have some visualizations that we made as well. So like we're still working through some ideas right now in terms of like the visual language and how we want things to look. So like here's one mock-up that they did. And then here's a visualization or like a template we came up with as inspiration. So it's still actively in development. We're still actively tweaking it. Like we want to make it modern. We want to make it more like Ubisoft games, like the Breakpoint, Division, like those games. Battlefield, Call of Duty, like something that feels natural for like really quick laser focused information. And it just gives you exactly what you need. So we're just kind of working through different mock-ups, designing a bunch of different UIs. They're doing their thing. Like you figure you're not going to see a final operator UI probably for another week or two because they need to do the civilian evacuation final UI. They need to do the final gunsmith quartermaster UI. Then it's this. Those are the three that are on like the to-do list per se. Winters is waiting for the final mock-up that we have, and then he's going to draw over it of the layout that me and Derek are designing for like the features and mechanics, and we pass it off to him, and then he'll draw over it and do a mock-up so we can basically he can build on it from a visual standpoint. So again, it's still very speculative, and we're just still kind of adjusting and tweaking as we go. Let's see. What else do we have for questions? And yeah, the idea is that we're testing with that bar being floating or moving around you and being smaller. Because keep in mind, those UIs are mock-ups. What you mock up is never going to be what you implement in the real world. Like, you take the art assets, you tweak it, and you adjust it. It's why, like, you see concept for video game characters, and they look nothing like their actual, like, final version, typically. Because, like, their face changes, and the anatomy changes, and the proportions change. Because 2D art doesn't always perfectly translate to 3D. It's more of, like, an inspiration or starting point. So, it's the same thing here. Like some people were complaining about Siri from like the Witcher animated stuff, like her game model looked completely different. So like it's just one of those things where it's the same thing where we're just kind of tweaking it and adjusting it as we go. But yeah, so let me see what we have here because we have I'm gonna do one more question. So what is a hard Derivar, help me find a hard question.
I'm looking now.
Let's see. No, we're not answering that question.
No, they.
Wait, which Command and Conquer are you talking about, Wolf? That uses a tunneling system.
Hang on, Phoenix.
Is it more like the Nihilist Worm, where like you just immediately pop out and then there's like no real like you could go anywhere you want? Tiberium Wars. I played that game. I don't remember what you're talking about. Was it in the campaign or in skirmish? Oh, generals? Generals. I don't remember it. Oh, you're talking about the GLA tunnels. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about the GLA tunnels with the cloak and dagger, where they could basically like put a tunnel down, and then they could teleport across the map, essentially. I wouldn't call that as much as a train system. It's more of just like a virtual teleport. Because I mean, they're basically just putting them in virtual space, and then they're just teleporting them wherever you want them to go.
They go from one side of the map to the other.
Yeah, or not always one side, but you know, they could go like because Age of Mythology has it too. That one way retold in the original, where you have like that portal. You know what I'm talking about? It was the Greek god. I think it's the Greek god, where like she has that portal. The Hades. It's Hades. Yeah, it's the Hades gate, where you can open up a portal between A and B, and then I use that the back door. So when someone's making a Titan, I'll sneak an entire army behind their base, kill all their villagers, and then burn the town to the ground, and then go back out and leave before the reinforcements come. I use that to be a dick all the time. So I know exactly what you're talking about. We need to play that again with Down.
We do need to play that with Down.
Yeah, last time I was like programming, you guys wanted to play it. I was like, I can't play tonight. I'm programming. Yeah, no. This train stops for nobody. But it's the weekend, so we can play some games after this anyway. We'll do I
We
guess
can do
Monster Hunter.
Well, do we want to do Age with Down first and then go over to Monster Hunter?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. But then that way I can stream it on Twitch later, my personal, for funs. But
Funsies.
yeah, I might make a new character though.
I don't mind you making a new character. Like I said, I'm more than happy to play through the game.
I need to like sit there and actually watch a tutorial on how to make a good character because I suck ass at facial anatomy. Like I know it looks good, but I can't get it there. If that makes any sense. Like I'm not a character modeler.
Yeah.
Like when people go for character modeling, you have to have an understanding for facial anatomy of like what gets a face to look good or like to look a certain way. Like and like when I was talking to some of my character modelers I had, like they'd be like, "Oh yeah, like it's hard." In terms of like everyone thinks it's easy, but it's like blending and shaping a face to look good. It's like one of the hardest things people start with for character modeling. Like some people just never get it. So
Well, I used to always just play Davy Default. You know,
you're
I
basic.
used to play Davy Default. I always used to just go in, be like, "Yep, that's good. Whatever, play."
That triggers me.
But
I
for-
want to go play.
but
The only
for,
time I did that was Commander Shepard in Mass Effect 3 because they made her a
Well-
baddie. So I
Well, for me, for Shepard, right?
yeah.
I always stuck with David Default because I'd always keep a helmet on, so I wouldn't bother. And it's the same with
You
any
disappoint
other
me.
game that has a helmet. Is I just keep the helmet on.
I don't. I take it off every time.
But for Wilds, I don't know why I thought about or why I did it, but I actually created a custom character.
I'll pray for you. Wait, I don't remember what your character looks like. It was a girl, wasn't it?
No, it's an old grizzled veteran
I'm disappointed.
to properly represent my my time with the Monster Hunter, with the Monster Hunter games. Is I've come from Generations Ultimate,
That's so
motherfucker. I'm
deep.
old.
You want a cookie? Oh, dick.
I come from 4U and fucking GU and whatnot.
Okay, I believe you. Okay, I'm gonna take
Where
this
the
last
flagship
question.
used to be ludicrous.
Oh, you'll be fine. Okay.
We didn't have Elder Dragons.
So
Oh,
that's
God.
the biggest thing, Kat. Is that's why I need to get with the level designers. I need to talk with Derek. I need to talk with Michael because that's like the tunnel. Adding tunnels isn't just adding tunnels. It can balloon the complexity of the game, but at the same time, it allows us to immediately add the other sections of the game, like Angel and the other ones. Because you figure technically in Legacy, what you're talking about would happen regardless. Because if you didn't build SAM sites, you didn't build repeaters, they were going to ram you regardless. They were going to find a way of circumventing you and spread. Now, with this, it gives stand infected a channel to throw themselves at your defenses to get in. Because I don't think we're going to make the infected swim at this point. It's going to be too much. But I think that the more reasonable thing was having it where you just have a fixed subway tunnel, or because it all connects. So like if a subway tunnel connects from Angel Island to Treasure Island, it's going to be just that one fixed point. We're not like, so if you secure the underground for that one tunnel exit, entrance, whatever, the station, but technically you're securing all of the stations that precede it. So or go after it, whatever. So that's where we're like, I don't think it's going to be nearly as frustrating as you think it's going to be, because once you secure the front line train station, you don't need to worry about the middle station, the bottom station. You only have to worry about the one that goes to San Francisco North if the virus is in San Francisco North. But then you can use it as a way to backtrack or back cap as much as they can. So I don't know. I'm going to have to basically get into that and talk to some of my level designers, because that's been kind of on our list for like almost a year now at this point, and finally getting on the San Francisco North. I need to meet with them and see what they want to do for that. Because technically, modeling it and making it is simple. We have the assets already. It just means that every train station has to be made like 2 to 3 times thicker, like wider. and then we have to add some entry points for cars to go in. Because technically, that military base in Grid 1 is supposed to have an underground tunnel entrance like it has in Pierce's book. Because that military barracks everyone loves to camp at the top left of Treasure Island is the book that Pierce and Mason go through to try and escape the island, and then Mason gets turned into a lieutenant. And then turns into and then he becomes an inside man for Chelsea. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to brainstorm that one. You know, you can like talk on mic, right? Because you're writing like a twit longer right now, Kat. At the end of the podcast.
Phoenix, Phoenix is a funny one.
Okay, sure. I guess I can speak. So I guess what I was gonna say, or what I was typing out, was it's just like right now it's really overwhelming to play single player, right? So like just having another vector that we have to manage, especially when you're playing by yourself or with just one other person, kind of adding like something more difficult, right? But
Yeah.
I was kind of curious about an idea of having maybe a few different like commanders, right? So they're AIs that you can assign to maybe like a map zone. And if you assign them units, they can put them on automatic patrols. If they detect enemies there, they'll automatically try to send their units under their control to deal with them. You know what I mean? Like something simple to help you manage like things getting behind your front line so you can focus on the front, focus on civilian evac. Just making it easier for one or two players to not have to manage every aspect of what's going on.
Not a bad idea.
What do you think about that right now? Wolf,
Yeah,
are you trying to add to the conversation too? Okay, I'm gonna add both of you up. We'll have a little small debate. Okay,
Yeah.
so
So I came in and I had an idea. So my inspiration, like I'm thinking of this like I'm thinking of the Hades or the GLA network, except for two teams had to fight over ownership of it, right?
sure.
So I imagine it could be a very simplistic, simple system of like the more of a capture of the flag kind of, where you can go around capturing these tunnels, and then there's like the HP bar goes to each side, and you're basically having a tug of war of how infested the tunnels are and how much CERC has fortified these tunnels to like keep them defended. So each side's like fighting for the ownership in a very more simplistic manner. So you don't have to worry about it being this complex system. It's just a who owns the most tunnels can basically use it as a warp point or block off access a little bit.
So your intention is not to have it as a physical mode of transit like in GTA where you physically can drive down it or like walk through it. Yours is more of like a fast travel system.
Yeah, it's very much a fast travel system where, and also they're like all connected, but it's like a game of capture the flag where you sit on these tunnels, you start getting points up and your team are fortifying it. Your HP, you get like a blue bar going up and up and up, and if you own all the tunnels, it'll be a big blue bar, and the enemies have to chew all through that blue bar before they can start bring it back to zero. Then the enemies, the infested, can go in there, and this big red bar represents how much they have infested the tunnels. You can see the tunnels get like infested and come out the end, and then just shoot in and come out where they want to come out. So each team's just fighting for over who owns the entire network of these tunnels.
Yeah.
Very simplistic system of just warp over the map over there. You could put in like a artificial delay of how long it takes to get from point A to point B. Like, hey, I'm going to go from here. I want the next here. Just you can put an artificial delay in there, but still be like a warping system.
Yeah. What are you gonna say, Kat?
Yeah. I was to say like ironically or like parallel, I had actually thought about metro tunnels as a way to have like a fast travel thing like a month ago when I first started playing. Like where's the subway tunnels, right? Because like in so many movies, especially like zombie films and whatnot, right? Like those are a way they get around, or they build their nests down there and things like that. But like for me, Although I'm almost done.
Yeah.
Almost done. Give me one more sentence here or two.
Good.
It's just you need to be able to fortify them without using your pop cap, or be able to demo charge them, and then maybe they have to start digging their way through the rubble, right? But you get notified of that. It just has to be something that you have time to respond to.
That's why I said like a capture the flag style, where you put your troops near one of these entrances and you then fortify. You get like the option to fortify this entrance with like engineers, and that gives you like an armor over the entire system. But the enemy is doing the same thing with their troops. They're sending troops to these entrances, and as they fill in the entrances, their bar fills up with how infested the tunnels are. And because of tug of war of who has the most control over these networks.
Yeah.
So it's one big body where you can send your guys in to do that damage to, like do fortify. They're doing the thing where you're just that, and whoever has the most control can send their troops through these tunnel networks to like teleport to where they want to be. But the enemy can do the same. So whoever has the most control at the time can do with that. And then there's going to be times where it's popping back and forth, and you're just shooting. They're just sending things through, or you're that. So you have to go to other tunnels and get to make your progress of owning these tunnels faster. So the more tunnels, whichever side owns the most tunnels, they're more likely to own the entire system and have it fortified. So when you have the whole thing's fortified, you basically cut off them using the fast travel system. But if they own it and you ignore it entirely, they're the only ones going to own it, and you have to capture these points, and you have to go across the map to capture more points. So it's not just a fast travel system; it's a fast travel system that whoever owns the most of these tunnels, you have to go and fortify more
Let me
tunnels.
ask you a
So
question.
you still had, yeah.
So the primary design goal of a system like
Yeah.
this would be to open up more points and not make it overwhelming. But the other element is making it to where like Angel Island can connect to Treasure Island. So in what you're kind of suggesting, like let's say for instance you have, I'm gonna just bring up my screen here. Let's say for instance you have like right here you have this train station, and
Yeah.
let's say what you're suggesting, you would garrison people or like you would fortify this point. So then what I don't really understand is, let's say you have another train station over here. We're going to guess as a train station over here, at a subway, whatever.
Yeah.
So how would the infected be able to like fairly be able to lay siege to that train station? Because it's only a one-to-one connection is my problem.
So there's only one-to-one there. And I guess the answer would be whoever has the most troops there starts winning.
The only problem
you
is
have
that
to get
because of the limited pop, then you're
Yeah.
then you're exposing. You know what I mean? Because then you're moving the meter
Then
to another problem.
then the only other option I could think of is adding a way for one of the sides to add a third tunnel to make every tunnel like a third, so it's uneven.
I'm not sure.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, no, because like the biggest problem is that what I would probably do if I were to do that is do something like this. Is ugly, obviously, but have like a wider tunnel entrance like this. Have it to where like the fast travel idea is interesting. I'm gonna have to like mix it over with some people and see. I would personally like to go the way of like having it to where you can physically have like a little lane, like a street that just runs over here. And then that way you physically can travel there. But obviously that does add a lot of complexity in terms of things that can go wrong.
You had to figure out how you would have to work out a system of interior system, like an interior system.
Yeah.
Like the whole game.
Let me I don't know. I gotta sleep on that one because you figure I think you have a point.
Mechanically, because right now you don't have any interiors. You're not built around having interiors. You are very much you garrison people inside of buildings. Like all your buildings that with civilians, people are garrisoned inside. They're not interior buildings, right?
Yeah.
So you hand wave it away by saying this is a building. You put people inside of it, or you have infested inside it. It's very a simplistic system in a sense. You don't have every interior built, and the same. I think the metro has to be built the same way.
So
somewhat.
Do you want me to add more thoughts, or do you want to wrap this up, Dart?
You can add it, and then we can wrap it up.
Okay, so if you had it where you could effectively put like a cap on it, right? So like a CERC, I can cap these, with like a structure or like a defensive ring, right? And then I can upgrade that through, like different doctrines, right? So, Doctrine 2, I can buy an upgraded version of it. So then they physically come out, but it's its own defensive structure. So it's not drawing from my pool of like, guard towers, guard turrets, other things. It's its own structure that I can upgrade, repair. Maybe it's even self-repairing because it has a couple people, air quote, assigned to it automatically. You get what I'm saying? So you can physically see them coming out and you're shooting at them.
Yeah.
Let me,
Imagine that. Then you, and
I
then
gotta.
on our side, yeah, you own both. If you own both sides and have your people stationed on both ends,
Let me
yeah,
mull that over because you figure I see where you guys are coming from. For having like the
Mhm.
actual like physical lane is going to be too much, but the fast travel
but-
one becomes a camping wet dream because you figure all
Yeah.
they end up doing is just walk through a door and immediately get shot. So I have to figure out a better way of doing that. Is my only
Yeah,
concern.
but like they instead of the AI sending them all out, they send like a big wave instead. Like they infest the underground, they horde up, and then they launch them all out at once. Like
Yeah.
a big squad.
Well, it'd be a
Oh,
garrison
that could
system.
actually be really
It's
cool if-
basically we would use the garrison system we already have on the vehicles because technically we can
Yeah.
write hypothetically.
Mhm.
Like all
Yeah.
this is basically just a multi-exited garrison system where the idea is you put it into like 5
Mhm.
objects that have the garrison actor
Yeah.
component, and then you can click anywhere in the network, and then it would fast travel them to that point per se, ungarrison them like a vehicle.
Yeah.
So we already have it working technically. It's just more so
Yeah.
I have to worry about the balance considerations because like you figure, okay,
Yeah.
hypothetically, you have to have enough slots and the thing has to be big enough to facilitate
Yeah.
a good majority of the
I
enemy
j-
types.
Yeah, I went back to my other idea of a capture. The system. How about the system being like all or nothing? Like someone is specifically in ownership of the entire network, and the infested will attack the tunnel on the other side. And when they break it down to 0, they now own it, and you have to do the same on your side, where it gets its HP back, and you have to push your troops in on the
So
other
what
side.
you're
So the tunnel is the
suggesting
one big-
is that you have some kind of
Yeah.
containment or quarantine emplacement or structure, like let's say a wall. For the sake
Yeah.
of simplicity, we're going to
Yeah,
say there's
it's a
a
wall.
quarantine wall at the subway, and they have to break
Yeah,
that to be able to access the
Yeah.
subway. But then like, the only
Yeah, and then now they own it. They will come and then they have like a moment where they're free. They garrison their units, and then they send them out on the other side. And you have to start breaking down the other side of the broken containment, so that it's now one big entity that you're destroying.
To reduce the complexity, I would just only infected can use it, right? But
Yeah.
do you remember how in Legacy, they would like the infected individuals would come together and like kind of fuse into like a pod or a
Correct.
gas tower, right? So what if there was like a thing like that, right, where infected would sometimes try to get into these tunnels, and once they reached a critical mass, that mass of units, right, would kind of come out of one entrance at random, or one closest to the biggest threat target they
Yeah.
had, etc.
Yeah.
Mixing that with like the cap structure, defensive structure that I had kind of mentioned. So it kind of is, it's combining our two things, if that makes sense.
well, my concern, if I can visually depict that elegantly and quickly,
Yeah.
would be hold on.
Go ahead.
I gotta find the asset that would represent this good enough. Hold on. We'll just use you. You're ugly enough. Okay, so we're gonna say this is a wall. So we're gonna say,
Yeah.
based off what you guys are suggesting, we're gonna say this is a lock. So I gotta destroy this structure on the gate
Mhm.
to be able to access to use the tunnel network. The problem is that the other way around, it doesn't work that well. Because you figure, where do I spawn them? Like they have to come through the other side. So like let's say we have another tunnel network over there, and they clear that out on Angel Island. And now they want to
Yeah.
come here. So the problem is like where are they? Like how do you stop them from attacking
think-
this structure when you have to spawn?
I think so. What I said and what I suggested is make both entities, both this tunnel network and the one on the other side, the same thing. So if you lose this side, you lose the other side as well. at
I
the
have
same
another
time. So
idea.
there's one-
So I think what would
Yeah,
make
sure.
more sense is to have it to
Yeah.
where there's a gate here.
Mhm.
And they physically like instead of having it where like it's a full all in one structure, it would be like this
Yeah.
is like a screening gate. And
Yeah.
when you take control, like so it'd be like a strategic resource. So the idea is that when you code one of these structures, you click a button and it would basically upgrade it to have a screening gate. And that would mean that civilians and infected can't openly go through it unless they destroy that object. So
Mhm.
then you have a huge ramp or a section down here
Yeah.
where you can spawn
Yeah.
juggernauts, spitters, blow up guys, big enough to facilitate a vast majority of the infected. Then that way they run up the staircase and they attack
Yeah.
this object. And once they attack that object, they're allowed out to go and kill everyone. So
Yeah,
you
that
build your
works.
defenses here and here and there and whatever.
Or you build your defenses on the other side of the gate so that you don't have to,
Yeah,
like,
well, because
handle
the idea is that you wouldn't be able to build down here because like then you'd be able to
Yeah.
you'd be able to like cheese it. So down here is unbuildable. Down here is just purely just a lane for transit. And when you're doing the garrison system, you just walk up to this footstep or like you walk down here and then your unit disappears. And then they're in transit. They're in this virtual space. And then that way, anywhere where this is connected, you simulate the time by distance. Because that's not a hard calculation to do. So you make it to where for
Very
every
easy.
100 feet or 500 feet, it translates to this many seconds. So let's say, for instance, you garrison here, and you want to go, let's say over here, then we would just say, okay, we're simulating they're in a vehicle or they're on foot or whatever we're going to do. So we say it takes 30 seconds. That's both ways. So if there's an infected wave and you don't have that defense and that cordon here, it takes them 30 seconds to enter this network over here and exit the network here.
Yeah.
And that gives you time
Makes sense.
so that way, if you get overran over there, it's not immediately, oh my God, they're going to bleed out. They're going to take everything immediately. You're going to have time. And then we just show like a simple progress bar, or we show like a little like line graph that just shows the unit icons moving. Like you ever see those like there's a line, and then there's an icon, and then you click on a garrison. If someone's on their way to that garrison, it would just show like a unit's icon moving along a bar. 0 being where they are, like 0 being like they just started, and all the way on the right being they've arrived. You could do something so simple like that. That way you could group people together, and that way they all arrive at the same time. So you don't get like a trickle.
Yeah. Also, what you also want a bit is a button to recall, so that they're like at 60%, but you need them back here now.
Then that way you just reverse the operation. Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because technically what you guys are talking about is like maybe a couple of days of work. It's probably a day or two because you figure the systems are already in place from just the Ajax and like the Chinook.
Yeah.
How the Chinook works is basically how this would work. It's a virtual space. The units are put in like a little black box. And then essentially when they're taken out, they obviously are garrisoned. And the only difference would be is that we just have to link points together. So let me actually
very simple stuff, and you have a gate on either side. You're free to choose which side to fortify, or you can fortify both sides of the tunnel. If there's multiple tunnels coming off, very simple stuff, I imagine.
Okay.
Because we don't. If you had like massive maps, you could have a actual map, but
I like it.
And when I'm thinking about massive map, I'm imagining you know the deadlock, the new thing. There's a character on that named Doorman, and Doorman has an ability where he can teleport a person away for a time. What they did to do that teleport away, but still have a space the other player can walk in, they literally shoved his whole like the main you could put you in under the map.
Oh.
So yeah, there's another example of it being used in deadlock of like someone being put in a tunnel for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I take it.
So if you want to do that for the campaign, where you have underground segments, that would be what I would do. Is like you enter a tunnel, then you got a different map that you get like warped to.
Yeah. So I'm sitting here just kind of taking a picture and mocking this up because I'm gonna get one of my artists to design a custom new asset and then find some new spots where we can set up. I was gonna take it out of the ground because you can see that there's a little tile here where they cut out the ground for units to go up in there because we intended that to be a functional place in the future. It just was more of like a thing we couldn't do at that point. But it'd have to be wider than this because how navigation works in the Unreal Engine is that like you figure it's not form-fitting. It's a little bit bigger. So it'd have to probably be that big to facilitate the juggernaut. But obviously everything's
Also,
stretched and skewed, but it's more of a mock-up.
If you don't want it stretched and skewed officially, like you can have small tunnels that might like
Well, I'm not
person-only
worried about
tunnels.
that. I'm just saying
Yeah.
this is a really crude, ugly example,
Yeah.
just so I can
But
give this to an
if you ever
artist.
if you ever need a lore reason and not have a massive subway tunnel, you could have it like at the end is exploded out like a massive like they ripped their way out of it kind
Well,
of.
yeah, I'm gonna send this
Yeah.
over to my artists, and then they're going to have to. That's their job. They're
Yeah.
gonna theory craft it and figure out like what if we
Yeah.
could, how we would do something like that. So,
Yeah, and why would the tunnel be big enough for a juggernaut to come
well, I
through?
mean, there's a bunch of ways of
whatnot?
doing it. Like I know that like
Yeah.
there are some like Grand Central Station and other stuff like that where they have like these wide, big, nice,
Yeah.
like actual like modern setups. So like it's not that crazy to think based off of like we can say those.
But also having
Hmm?
also I think the idea of having different like fucking tiers of things that might limit like certain vehicles. Like you can't send a vehicle through that because it's too small or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have
until
to.
like until a Leviathan
You play
like,
GTA?
digs a hole through. Yeah, I play GTA a little bit.
GTA is a perfect example where they have those little like actual like tunnels. All you do is you have like those little tunnels where it's like a little like bore, where it's like a half circle wall or with a half circle hole cut into a mountain or a hill, and then it goes into an it's like a loading and offloading area. So like take like the depot over here. It could be as simple as just having like a little half circle hill over here, and that's the only way for vehicles to transit or something. I don't know. So again, I'm gonna talk to some of my people and see what can go into something like that. Okay, let me pop you down real fast.
Because like you can put nesting. There's nesting things where you have vehicles, then you have troops that can go in vehicles, and then you have stuff that can pick up the.
Well, we
entire
have
vehicle.
biomass. We have infected biomass, so it could just be as simple as like they can build on them as much as you can, and then that way you have to clear or burn that location to basically enter it. Because like we have here, I'll show you real fast before I call it quits. Is that because I know Duravar is going to cut me? We have all of these assets that we can kit back.
Oh, you don't throw it on me.
So technically, because we've been saving these for like an infected revamp, because we want to add them the ability to build walls and close off entire sectors of the map to just fuck you.
Yeah.
But then that way you got to burn these and kill these to get through the map. In some cases, in the mid to late game, it's not going to be like, oh, I have an Abrams. Can you get the Abrams to the enemy? Good luck.
Yeah.
So
and the idea that like someone like Chelsea or a lieutenant is they see a helicopter coming or like maybe a lieutenant, not Chelsea, but like a lieutenant sees your Abrams coming and like, oh shit, and then they go into their tunnel network to get away from being like bombarded.
Sure. So again, like it's one of those things where we need to kind of like I gotta have a meeting with my people because like you figure it's a good idea. It's something that we do. Like we're not gonna be even like remotely, entertaining this until Iron Wake and Angel Island over there is converted into a standalone, and then sometime towards the end of next week to the week after that would be where I'd get together with them and be like, hey, okay, can we do this? How would we do it? What would it incorporate? Where do we have to change in the level to facilitate it? So on and so forth. Because definitely with a change like this, that train station would physically have to be moved to a new location because it's not going to accommodate the gameplay we need. Like we always planned on cutting this up and probably they're just moving this building over. Maybe making this parking lot a little bit smaller or just moving it all together. Because like there's one over here that is more like, now this one would work for like infantry if this bus wasn't here. Because this was always the one that like, you could even see we like tunneled it out. I think your units can actually physically go down here and hide. I know operators can. But you figure like, so like this is actually a better case. Like you can see how wide this one is. Like a juggernaut could fit in that if you just raised the roof and made it maybe another 5 feet wider. Boom. There you go. There's an asset where you can spawn anything and just send them out.
Yeah. Also, I like the idea that there's this tunnel that's just normal. Then the enemy sends a juggernaut through, and he just rips his way out. Like, imagine how that tunnel, without upscaling right now, how would you imagine the juggernaut getting out of that tunnel? And I just imagine him squeezing, crashing through walls, ripping it open at the end. Just a very cinematic explosion that happens like one time. The first time they send a juggernaut through.
Yeah,
Or you could just have different sizes. Some allow vehicles or juggernauts.
that
to
would be
come
the more
through,
reasonable
some are
route.
only.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
because then it's like for the big ones, I need to concentrate my defenses there more. Where the other ones,
Or
a
just
few,
mobs. Yeah.
yeah.
Because that way it opens up another lane. Because like we talked about it on Steam. I was like debating it with some people on a Steam thread of like, okay, like I don't want to, like technically this map could be playable in a day or two, with on the base Bay Area map, but there's no mechanism for the infected to jump coast to coast yet. Like technically the birds are in, but we made it to where the infected builders are the only ones that can spread like new pods per se.
gas towers.
So-
yeah. And you don't. Yeah.
Because we wanted to make it more predictable. Because the problem with Legacy is that everything did everything. So like there was no like, oh, that's the guy I need to kill first. So like there was no real like strategy layer. I felt like.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's-
I remember that like the whole thing of like, hey, I want to keep the birds down, so I just I put a bunch of AA guns around the island that they were on and blew up the bridge. Like
Yeah. So I don't know. It's one of those things where like this change would be a nice like little lateral move or whatever that we can sneak in over the next couple weeks to
Yeah.
just be able to open up this island as playable.
Yeah,
But
I'm
they-
just imagining like you're trying to keep a builder off of the town network so they don't capture it. Yeah, I imagine stuff like that.
Yeah. Anyhow, I'm
Yeah.
gonna pop you down real fast so we can transition out. And then, Kat, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Nope, nothing. We can talk more another time.
Okay. So, there's a lot of cool brainstorming there. I'm gonna write down some of that, take it back to some of my devs, and then we're gonna figure out like where that would make sense to incorporate that because we have a timeline already planned out for the next week or two. But that is a sweet idea to look into, to like before they like technically start working on this and setting up the bridges and the movement and all that. I can meet with them and they can probably do some augmentations over half a week or so. We just added like 3 train stations here, 3 train stations there, and then connect San Francisco via two tubes. One that goes over here to the northern sector, and another sector. These all here connect to like something over here to the warehouse district and the tourism sectors of the map. So it'd be interesting because in that way you have 2 tunnels or 2 networks to get this way and they get that way. So like blocking off Treasure Island doesn't mean that they can't circumvent you. Go to Angel and then go to the mainland, or vice versa. You have to secure both areas. 'Cause I wouldn't want to make it to where it's just one lane that just goes this way. That's boring. I'd probably just do like a faucet or whatever, like a Y junction where it goes left and it goes right, and like some of like this one goes to that one, and then like a couple over here connect to the right, or maybe just 1 or 2 of them fire off. So I gotta just theory cut that a little bit. But anyway, Durvar, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap this up? This is a longer one.
This is a much longer one. No, I
2
think
hours and
we've got
37 minutes.
everything. I think we've covered everything. I can't really think of anything else that I can talk about.
You want to give the
I think
outro?
we've got everything. Yeah, I can give the outro. Well, thank you everyone for coming along, and thank you for Robert for being here, our gracious developer, lead project, whatever.
God help me.
I live to bully you. Anyway, I've already lost my train of thought.
I got it. So
Thank you.
again, thank you guys
what's
so much for coming. This is a passion project for us. We're self-funded, so if you want to consider supporting development, check out the Steam support packs on Steam. They all help out. Check out our Patreon. And like thank you guys so much for the time and effort you guys put in playing the build, sharing your enthusiasm. It's been great seeing all the fun you guys have been having with the game, loading up the game, and seeing all the co-op sessions you guys are running every day. Like that brings so much joy to all the devs. Seeing people genuinely having so much fucking fun with the game. That's what we want at the end of the day. It's just people to buy the game and have fucking fun. Simple as that. So again, thank you guys so much. We're signing off.